Hello, welcome to the THC Show. I'm your host, Neil Magnuson, and this is the show about THC. You know, those three very important and sought after letters in our world: truth, hope, and change. Well, really, it's probably tetrahydrocannabinol that is really being sought after. And that's why we have the show, is because in this wacky world that we live in, there is problems for people accessing that amazing, naturally forming medicinal chemical that provides a little bit of euphoria and levity in a world that really could use some levity and a little bit of calming down for sure. It's a fight that's been going on for a long time, and we're going to continue talking about it until it gets won. It can't go any other way. On the show today, we're going to have 8 out of 10 Glenn from Cannabis.ca. We've got Dan from Heisenherb coming on to talk to us about a number of different things that they're involved in there. Sent one of their better people from head office, apparently. And we'll take a trip out to visit the Healing Wave RV and see what's going on there with the Ganja crew. And as always, we're going to talk about this journey of ours to try to get permission from public servants to be able to properly address this public health emergency with the use of cannabis high-dose edibles, which is by far the best method and the best solution that there is to the overdose crisis. For most people, not everybody, but for most people, there is a way out of that addiction. And trust me, everybody wants out of that addiction. Down here in Vancouver on the downtown east side, where we have a number of visible addicts, they just cleaned out hundreds of tents that had been here for years, set up on the sidewalks, full of homeless people that are struggling with poverty and all sorts of mental health issues and addiction. And all of those people that are struggling with addiction, all of them would like that to not be the case. They would like to be able to stop what they're doing. That's why it's such a struggle, is because they don't want to have to keep doing these drugs, but every time they try to stop doing the drugs, they end up in some physical distress and emotional distress that is just more difficult than just about anybody can handle. And the vast majority of people don't make it through until they've tried it several times and usually found some way to help them through that. And the best way to get help through that is through high-dose edibles. I mean, that's the big secret that shouldn't be a secret. That's the fight that we're having, that's the struggle we're having here, is to get a federal government that's hell-bent on restricting access to allow easy, low-barrier access to the high-dose edibles, to the good quality concentrates and the potent cannabis that'll help people that are struggling with not just addiction, and of course the high-dose edibles helps people get through addiction, but it helps primarily with the drivers of addiction. Because the people that are addicted got that way because they found relief initially for trauma and problems and issues that they had physically, mentally, emotionally. And they end up on the hard drugs because they're easily available down here on the downtown east side. When your mental health or your physical or your emotional issues lands you in poverty because you can't keep a job and you end up being homeless, most people end up down here. This is because there's all the services you could ask for down here. There's over $1 million a day being put into the downtown east side to provide services to the poor people down here that find themselves down here because of circumstance. And they all want off those drugs, but they just can't get through withdrawal. That's the thing. So we've got a solution to that. And you would think that the government would be touting that, through all the media, be up on the rooftops, ringing bells and shouting it out. Hey, all you people struggling with addiction, come see us, your government. We're going to help you. We're going to provide you real easy access to high-dose cannabis edibles. And if you use them properly, you can get off of those drugs. That's what should be happening, but it's not. And what that does is it exposes the type of governments that we've got going on here in Canada. We've been at this handing out high-dose edibles to people and successfully helping them escape addiction for over 6 years now. It was 6 years last February. We're heading for 6.5. Hundreds of people became members of our program, the CSP, the Cannabis Substitution Program. When we moved from the sidewalks after 3.5 years to the storefront, and that's almost 3 years ago now, in 10 days from now it'll be 3 years since we moved onto the block here at Cordova in Maine. And during that time, we've also been selling cannabis because we had to, because the deal that we had with the city is that we would get a storefront and stop people from having to line up for hours on a sidewalk and give them a place to be that was safe and, with some dignity. And so we did that. And then because the municipal government wouldn't give us that license, they said they would until the federal government did. Well, that's where all the corruption became exposed really quite clearly here. The federal government in Canada has been infiltrated by organized crime right to the highest level, to the PM's office. Our chief coroner said that, made that statement at a meeting of the municipalities just a couple or 3 weeks ago. And we've certainly experienced that must be what's going on here. We have demonstrated successfully for over 6 years that cannabis is not only effective in doing that which we claim that it does, in helping people get through withdrawal and get off those drugs, but it's safe. Nobody dies of a cannabis overdose. Lots of people overdose on cannabis edibles. They take too much to begin with, and in a lot of cases, unfortunately, it's such a bad experience that they never want to try that again. And that's really too bad. Because if they'd have started low, gone slow, found the right level, they could find the level that works for them just fine. High-dose edibles are capable of dealing with that extreme pain and the serious emotional incompleteness that drives people to using those hard drugs. Smoked cannabis, not so much. You can't really smoke a joint and have your amputated leg feel okay. Or a number of other examples I could have pulled out of the air. That smoked cannabis is a distraction from pain. It's pretty good for minor arthritis and other things like that. It can change your mood. If your mood is not good because of a number of different things, it can distract you into seeing humor and joy and amazement in life. It's good that way. But as far as the type of serious trauma that people are suffering after having dealt with, that leads them to using opiates and other hard drugs, that requires something more potent than just the magical vapors of our sacred herb. And that's where eating cannabis comes in. Eating cannabis provides a much different route throughout the human body for the cannabis to take. It goes through the liver as opposed to the lungs. It goes into the bloodstream after having been processed in the liver, as opposed to getting in there through the membranes of the lungs. It's a high that can last for hours and hours, and it can compound. With smoked cannabis, you smoke to a certain point, and any more is just a waste of time, a waste of herb, because you're only going to get so high on good quality cannabis, and after that, smoking more ain't going to get you more high. But with edibles, you can keep eating edibles and you can keep getting higher and higher, or maybe lower and lower, depending on how you want to look at it, because they can knock you right out. I was telling a story about my own personal experience with high-dose edibles, apparently in a previous show, and didn't get to finish it. Sorry, Dr. Allen. I'm not sure which story that was. I don't have too many, but it might have been when I went to Toronto on the Freedom Tour, and in 2006, and my friends there, Chris Goodwin and other activists, we went on a tour of Toronto, and we first went to the Kindred Cafe, where I had a milkshake that was infused with cannabis, and everything's a bit of a blur after that. But I do remember going to Puff Mama's cafe, Joey's Cafe, and we were there early, and the first ones there, waiting for the others to arrive, and sitting at a table with a tray of brownies in the middle of it, and Puff Mama comes along and says, "Hey, what the hell, you guys ate that whole tray of brownies? That was for a dozen people." And I think I must have ate most of those. And so yeah, I didn't leave her little cafe for 3 solid days and nights with my head feeling like it was a beach bowl about this big, and I couldn't get off the cot except to pee once in a while. And I remember feeling really horrible about all of that. And that's kind of the last time that I've eaten edibles to any great degree. There was another time back when I was about 16 or 17 when we had infused pizza, and I got so high that I couldn't properly make out with the girl that I picked up at the party, and that's kind of what stopped me from eating edibles from that point on. Never had another incident like that and didn't want one. So those are really my two edible stories that I have. So I'm not sure which one you were talking about there, Dr. Allen, but I mean, I have the one about Murphy Brown. You know, Murphy Brown, my little dog for 11 years there. She was one of my best activist friends and my best buddy for 11 years. And we had the herb school, much like what we have here, although, it was an in-store dispensary that we opened 18 years ago or 19 years ago this coming August. And there was a day there where a few different people that were regulars had all fed Murphy some edibles unbeknownst of each other. And when I looked at her and realized there was something not right going on there, and I asked if anybody had given her any edibles, and 3 people said that they did. Poor Murphy, I mean, she was fine. In fact, she was friskier than normal the next day or two. But that day, she could hardly get up on her feet at all. She was just sort of laying there in a puddle like a puddle on the floor, and every little noise startled her. And she'd jump up and get up on her legs, and then her legs would go out from underneath her, and she'd be back on her belly again. So, you got to be careful with edibles, right? I mean, and that's the point. And I actually appreciated that Dr. Allen wanted me to elaborate a little more on that story, because it is kind of the biggest issue that we have with the Cannabis Substitution Program. The idea always was that we would get high-dose edibles to people as easily as possible. That was the main bottom line pillar of the Cannabis Substitution Program, is let's make it as easy as possible to get high dose edibles to the people that really need them, that can't afford them. And so we started giving out care packs in early February 2017. I got a number of different dispensary owner friends of mine to give me donations to start going with the program. And then we bagged them all up into like 4 to 6 edibles, and they'd be anywhere from 50 to 150 milligrams per edible in those bags. Throw a couple of joints in, because people helped me to understand that it takes a little while for the edibles to kick in. But if you smoke a joint, then that sort of bridges that time period of helping you feel okay until the edibles kick in. So we were giving out these care packs of 4 to 6 edibles and a couple of joints to people, and it was a few weeks later that I had to present how we'd been doing to the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users Board. And so I was up there talking to them about the program and that we'd been doing this, and this is what we're doing. And there's about 12 or 13 board members there that day, and most of them had also been taking advantage of the program and getting their edibles there. And so when I made the comment that, it had been pretty good, that we really hadn't had any reports of people eating more than they should, well, about 11 of the 13 hands went up around the table, and everybody had their story to tell of how, they ate more than they should have out of that bag that we gave them, and they spent the night hanging onto a lamppost, or, unable to get out of bed, or whatever it was. And thankfully, all of them at that table had decided that that wasn't going to be the end of it for them, that they were just going to reduce their dosage to figure out what was a more comfortable dose and continue on. But I mean, that gave me an insight into the issues that we actually were having with people that we were giving these edibles to. And we found out over the course of time that there was a number of people that had come, they had gotten the edibles, they had taken too much and had a very bad experience, and they didn't come back again for more. And that's unfortunate, and it's, like I say, one of the biggest issues that we deal with here. We want to help people learn how to use these things so that they can navigate the withdrawal, so that it can assist them through withdrawal. And, we're not there with them. We simply give them the products, and we give them the advice, and then they're on their own. And for people that are hungry, that are impoverished, that maybe aren't thinking too straight, in the first place, being given a bag of tasty treats, it's very tempting for them to eat too much, and so many of them do. But we try hard here to make sure that they understand that that might not be a good thing to do. They might not enjoy themselves on that. They might not want to do it again if they do that, and that it's important for them to realize that what they've done is just they ate too much, and that they need to be able to self-regulate the dosage, because nobody can tell you what your dosage is. It's not a question of size. It doesn't matter male to female. It's just a unique individual thing as to how much is the right amount for an individual. So, we send people away with, the bag. Now, those people that aren't members of the program here, we have, 269 member spots that the people are in, and they get 420 milligrams of high-dose edibles every 4 days for free. But these are people that we've been helping out for the last number of years. They all understand the parameters of the edibles and what their tolerances are, and we don't need to worry about those people. But the other ones would be the ones that are coming to the window and purchasing edibles. The ones that we give it to, because anybody that can't afford it, they get it for free. They'll get either a muffin that's between 60 and 120 milligrams, or some other type of edible, and they can get that once a day, every day for free. But it's really not enough to send them into that really uncomfortable experience if they're just getting like 100 milligrams. That's a lot, and it can be too much for somebody, but it's not too much most of the time. And we still always warn them, and we still always ask them, have you experienced this before? Have you eaten edibles before? Do you understand about, not eating too much and going slow after eating not too much, to make sure of all that. The people that purchase them, they can purchase as much as they want, and then they can go do what they want with them. And for those people, we also try to make sure that they're purchasing edibles that they've had experience with them before, or that they've been properly cautioned to do an amount that's going to work for them. So edibles is an issue. It is the right way to get through withdrawal, in my opinion, for the vast majority of people. I haven't found anything that's better. There is no other solutions out there that are available to people that works better. And when used properly, they can be highly effective. You're going to really walk out there like that? Because that looks worse than just holding it in your hand. Anyway.
We're going to interrupt the show.
So, and also the other thing with edibles is that Glenn and I talked about a little bit last week, is that it's a little bit of a different experience as well. It's not quite the euphoric head high that you get when you're smoking a joint. It's more about a body sensation. It certainly can affect the head, don't get me wrong. There is one other edible experience that I maybe was talking about. It's not me personally, sort of. But my previous girlfriend, Roxanne, she was a lover of edibles, and she would be like she was drunk on edibles all the time. And, we'd have to treat her like as if she was a drunk person most of the time. And there was one party in particular that was at Greg Williams' house. Greg, may you rest in peace. And I see my clock says 4:19, but I guess it's the other one that has the alarm on it.
Your producer has one.
On it. So you guys get on it as well. You got 1 minute to roll them if you don't have them already rolled. And so this story quickly is that Dory from the Medicinal Cannabis Dispensary was famous for her edibles, for sure. Roxanne always was looking forward to whatever Dory would have in the way of edibles at these parties. And Dory had these brownies that she brought to this party at Greg Williams' place. And, oh man, I didn't eat edibles at the time, so I wasn't eating edibles. But Roxanne did, and so did most of the other people. And the party that night consisted of a few people that were conscious and wandering around, including myself. And most of the people were unconscious, laying about the different Chesterfields and things. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, people started to wake up. And they were all like, wow, man, the colors, holy smokes. So yeah, that was one of my other edible stories. But anyway, it's 4:20. That means that Glenn Wells is here. As always, come on in, Glenn. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Happy 420.
Wells.
That's me.
Yeah, it's 4:20 every day, twice a day, but we only recommend you get up and smoke for one.
Well, I've been awake at 4:20.
I have too.
Because I couldn't go to sleep.
I woke up at 4:20 by, just happened to look at my clock. I figured I had to get up and pee or something. Probably that's what's going on. And I look at my clock, and it says 4:20, and what went through my mind was no, I don't want to
get up now, right?
I'm not going to get up and have a big puff right now. I was in delirium.
Sometimes I don't want to get up to do a dab to go back to sleep at 4:20.
I have when I was younger.
You have, eh?
Yeah, I've woken up at 4:20, decided to have a session.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon I got to go to work.
Yeah. And then you sleep past your alarm because you did that session?
No, I didn't usually do that. I don't remember ever sleeping in.
Oh, I do.
On a work day.
Oh, yeah, I do.
I took work pretty serious.
I stopped doing that.
Yeah. You don't get to do that too many times with the same company.
Oh, no.
Typically.
Yeah. Especially when pot was illegal back then, too, right?
I always had, fairly major responsibilities. If I wasn't the foreman on the job, I had other, hard responsibilities that I had to be after. So I was one of the guys that had to be there early setting up stuff and what have you. I had no room to be sleeping in, If I did that once, I wouldn't do it again. I don't remember ever doing it.
Okay.
What I do remember waking up at 4:20 and having sessions.
Yeah, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
From time to time, yeah.
Sure.
But not now. Now, boy, I need my beauty sleep more than ever. I keep looking in the mirror going, more. All right.
So how was your week?
I'll have a puff.
How was your week?
Well, the week was all right.
Good.
The
Yeah.
weather's been good.
Yeah, weather's been good.
Nothing new from Health Canada. What else is new, eh?
No, me either.
Jeez.
I sent them another email because they like getting emails from me once a week, right? Saying, "Oh, it's another
I
week
used to do
passed."
that.
Right?
I used to do that.
Yeah, and it didn't work.
Well, you need an excuse for one thing, or you start to, you don't want to bother them. You don't want to be.
I want to bother them.
Well, but I don't.
I'm bothered because it's taken 4 years.
I'm bothered by it for sure. I have to be careful. I mean, you saw my letter to them in response to their intent to deny. I mean, I let some of my frustrations out in that letter. But you don't want to be somebody that's calling there angry every day.
Oh, I've never been angry with them, just impatient.
Well, if I'm calling there every day, if I'm repeating myself every day, and I'm like, hey, I mean, I've been calling you people every day now for how many weeks? And how can you not get angry about that, right? So,
you know what?
I mean, that's my thing too. That's why my previous lawyer didn't want me writing any letters to anybody like that, because my frustration comes through.
Comes through, yeah.
I am frustrated. I'm angry about all these things. This is ludicrous. This is outrageous. This is murder. This is like the fundamental basic what's supposed to be going on in our free society of public servants is so corrupted that they're willing to monetize a death situation here and capitalize on the cannabis situation, where they should have been doing what they should have been doing from the start, which is say, hey folks, we're your public servants. We're here to tell you what's going on in the environment. There's this one amazing plant, holy smokes, it has all the essential vitamins and nutrients and everything else that you want in the seeds for food, and it can be used as medicine in a variety of different forms, and it's really non-toxic and you can't overdose on it. It's really beneficial. It helps people sleep. It's got all these other properties. We're here to tell you that we're a great group of public servants. Thank you for electing us. And what we're doing is we're telling you about this plant, and we're going to make it really easy for everybody to get it. It's going to be in all the stores. Poor people will get it for free. We're going to cover it on Medicare. That's what they should have done.
They should have done, yeah.
That's what they should have done.
Make the population healthier.
But they got corrupted early.
Even make the planet healthier, because it's going to take in carbon dioxide when we're growing up the hemp and everything. 5 times a tree.
How much of our economy's problems and issues can be traced back to this stupid war on drugs?
Yeah. Or the disposableness of it, because it's rubbed off that the government thinks that we're disposable. Like, somebody else will have another baby, another human will come along or whatever sort of thing, I guess, and they really don't care.
What evolved out of this was a system where the corporate and financial elite can still get access to making laws and having things enforced that exploit us, and the evolution of the politician is of somebody who can get up there and convince the people that he's going to do the right thing for them, and then when elected, just be unattainable. Like, you can't even go visit him. You can write him a letter, but he ain't going to read it.
No.
And they're just going to do what they're going to do to satisfy the needs and wants of these big corporate financial elite people.
Yep. And
so that's been going on for a long time, to the point where we get this pretty boy Trudeau, who can get up there and smile away everybody's problems. He just smiles and says, "Look at my beautiful hair," and people forget that he's a corrupt piece of shit that's maintaining this prohibition against good people, man.
Good medicine.
It's long beyond the time they could ever say they just didn't know.
Yeah.
Fuck that. They've known for a long, long time.
And there would still be room for the pharmaceutical companies because cannabis doesn't cure everything.
Sure.
Right? There'll be things that they could still make money on.
Yeah.
They just won't make as much anymore.
Well, they should. Nobody should be making that kind of money, and not off of what they're making it on, which is supposed to be people's health. It's a corrupt, evil system, and we suspected it for a long time, and then we had the pandemic that proved it.
Yeah.
So and now the politicians don't even try to hide it, and same with down in the States. Once the WikiLeaks happened and they got exposed for the information they were gathering on people and the way they were trying to manipulate them and all the rest of it. I mean, and it was like, now you know. Now you know. So there you go. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm still running for president. So is this guy. They're the only two to vote for. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Maybe you're not going to vote. They don't care. They don't care.
Yeah,
I heard somebody the other day,
right?
they talked about the Calgary election, or the Alberta election yesterday.
Yeah.
I guess
that lady won.
Danielle Steele is still the premier of Alberta, and Rachel Notley is not.
She's not.
She's not.
Rachel Notley did not win.
Did not win. They did make some gains and what have you, but I saw one of the pundits that was going on about how in his perfect world everybody votes. And I'm like, well, in that perfect world, some of those people are being forced to vote.
Yeah.
And there ain't no perfect world. And to be honest, I think there's a pretty good percentage of people that really shouldn't vote. They don't have a clue what the fuck they're talking about or doing or thinking. I mean, they should not be allowed to vote. I mean, you should have to pass some sort of a skill testing question to be able to elect who our leaders are going to be.
Do you think voting from a computer would help that?
Well, there's lots of different ways to vote.
There's a province that just did an electronic vote.
Sure.
I think it was Nova Scotia or somewhere in the east. They just did this, or they were trying it out.
They had a bigger turnout in Alberta for the advanced polls than they had for the actual election.
Oh, really, eh? Wow.
Advanced polls are a thing. No, sure, numerous different ways to cast your vote. Make it easy, make it simple.
Yeah.
They can usually make it so it's not corrupt.
Yeah.
And they can do proper counting and what have you.
Well, we've got fingerprint scanners.
So
on our
I'm all in favor of voting.
Laptops, right? So you could scan your fingerprint, and this is the person who's doing the vote, and then nobody could ever say a second vote happened because you have to have that same fingerprint.
I want to meet that other person that has that identity.
Yeah, I know. I would just say the system would say no, that doesn't happen, right?
Exactly. No, they can do that.
Because there's one right here. That's how I open up my computer. I tap it with my finger, right?
Yeah.
So we could all do that. Then there would be more votes. Maybe
it's not hard to have one vote per person.
Yeah.
To keep track of all of that, to count the votes. I think you make it easy to vote, but I think you make it hard to lie to people. Mm-hmm. That there's consequences for that.
Well, I think when people who vote already know that politicians are probably not going to keep all their promises.
But that's the thing,
we already know that.
Conditioned.
So we just got to think of the ones. Okay, which one do you think is really going to keep that promise that you like?
Yeah, that one.
Right.
That one doesn't have a hope of getting elected.
Yeah, good.
So you're throwing your vote away. No, it's a dumb system that we have here. It can be revamped in numerous different ways. We need to not have the majority of the people that vote in a group of people that have carte blanche, a blank check, to do whatever the flip they want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
But it's not a vote wasted because it's not a vote for the guy that you don't want. So it can't be a waste of a vote.
Well, it's like you didn't vote.
That person that you don't want to win didn't get that person's vote, right? So it wouldn't be kind of a waste, right? It's still a vote. You gotta think on the opposite. The
well, I'm not sure. Right? I mean, I'm not sure.
If everybody wants Joe to win and I voted for Bill, fucking Joe didn't get my vote, so it's a win, right?
Sure.
He didn't get that extra vote.
Destroying your vote is a vote.
Yeah.
And it has some power as well. Not voting is a vote. It has some power as well. I talked to one friend of ours,
yes,
he thinks everybody should vote for none of the above.
None of the above, yes.
And all of it is trying to operate within a system that's designed to favor the ruling elite. And there's no limits on what the ruling elite get to do. Once they're in power, they can enact whatever legislation they want. There just seems to be very little constraints on what they can do once they're there, and there should be serious limits on what these public servants can do in the way of interfering with individuals in particular, but even groups. That they need to be scrutinized. That's why we need to have a healthy opposition that understands their role, that takes the government and holds their feet to the fire on all these different issues where they're trying to maybe over-regulate in favor of friends in the industry or whatever it is where corruption is seeping in. We need to have a proper opposition that will show that. So we haven't had that for too long, in my opinion. There is some of it for sure, but not enough of it. And we're so distracted by the fancy hair and by the
I know, and the suits or whatever, and the wife and kids,
one thing
right?
after another. And now it's did China try to influence our elections? Well, of course they do.
Pat says that people have to organize properly and start up patient shops again. The game is the same, but the rules have just changed. All right,
we're up against
what you're trying to do, right? So
we're up against such sophisticated forces here. We had it going on pretty good by 2019. I think we had really mobilized a large amount of people in Canada to be in favor of no longer using the criminal law to prohibit cannabis. And so, yeah, they gave it to us, you know.
They did.
But they're tricky bastards for sure. They gave us a legalization that allowed for all the mechanisms of prohibition to continue to be in place, and all these people that have been making money off of that immoral attempt to prohibit cannabis and other drugs are still able to rake in, mega amounts of dollars on it. So we've got the legal cannabis, and we've still got the illegal cannabis, and we've got the people that are part of the cartel that aren't doing very well because the cartel is not nice to deal with, and all those people that aren't part of the cartel, some of them tried but couldn't. Most of them wouldn't want to be. Who would?
Yeah.
And they're doing better than the ones that are part of the cartel, but their liberty is at stake. They're still being chased down by armed fucking enforcement people. Sorry, Annie Barbie, but I'm losing it today. I mean, I've probably sworn 3 times a day.
Use it as a segue. Some of them pretending to be the government but not paying their taxes.
Wow.
From that story, right?
Well, that's the thing, and that's
stamping their feet that they're not getting their money.
There's a lot of there's I think now 240 plus cannabis producers or retailers that are in arrears.
Oh, in arrears.
In arrears. They haven't paid their taxes. The federal excise tax. The $1 a gram, that I've talked about a lot. Well, the $1 a gram is not the absolute of what they take off of what's sold in Canada. They get $1 per gram or 10% of the value of a gram, whatever that is.
Okay.
Whichever is higher.
I thought just crossed maybe just the amount that hasn't been paid. It's the stuff that they can't sell.
I don't know, but they're flooded in product.
Because we know that some of the stuff that the government sends you, once you open it, if it doesn't sell, you don't get your money back. Or if there's something wrong, you don't get your money back. So maybe what's being owed is these stores saying, screw you, I'm not paying for something that I couldn't make money on.
Well, but you can't say screw you to,
you can, but they don't listen.
To the government.
We can all go screw you, Trudeau.
Yeah, they're coming after their money.
We can say as much as we want, right? But
they're coming after their money, and they'll get it.
Yeah.
You can take them to court, and maybe they'll win. I have no idea where this is all going.
Yeah.
The federal government was supposed to revisit, the structure of the retail supply chain thing. 18 months ago, they said they were going to do it, and they still haven't. Mm-hmm. And there's businesses, lots of them have gone under. Some of them have been acquired by other larger companies. And many of them are struggling big time. They're not making much money. No. 38% is the figure that they're saying is taken by taxation.
Wow.
Right off the top of what their profits are supposed to be. So 38% of their profits are going to governments. Governments are doing just fine with legalization. Man, what a scam. They put together a heck of a good plan for them. And really they did. And when you look at how they did this in Canada here, they had meetings, stakeholder meetings. When they had meetings with members of our community, the cannabis community that were, involved in the production and the supply of cannabis, it really looks like, in the end, they took everything that we said had to happen and did the opposite. It almost looked like it was a fishing expedition to find out what we thought proper legalization would look like, to give us the opposite of that. It really looks like they've tried to screw all the people that were part of the industry, and all those growers and producers that wanted to then be part of legalization. They always want to be not illegal, nobody wanted to be illegal. But, it looks like they've structured a thing where the government, rakes in a lot of money, and those people are barely surviving. They're to the point where they're easily acquired by the big companies, which is, the friends of government, as I mentioned.
I think the newness of buying from a government store is wearing off, and people are going back to the gray market because they know that it's a better deal. You can't get $100 ounce at one of these stores.
You can.
You can now. You can now. Is it good though?
And we're going to have Carol on, and she's going to talk about some of that. Yeah. Well, it's certainly not their best.
No, exactly, right? So I can get a pink Kush for $100, no problem, right?
Right. No, definitely the illegal marketplace has more to offer people than does the government stores, for sure.
Yeah, and a better price.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah,
better product, better price.
$60 for a gram of shatter when you can get it for $25.
You don't get the fancy store experience most of the time.
Yeah, you get to come and sit on Buddy's couch and smoke with him for a little bit, chit chat. You don't need the fucking fancy store. You got a friend, right? You sit down,
the store is a nice thing,
Is it?
Yeah, no, and I don't mean it should be the fancy stores that they have. They can have fancy stores. Some people like fancy stores. That should be fine. If you're catering to that part of the marketplace, you should be allowed to have a fancy store. If you're dealing with connoisseur growers and connoisseur consumers and they all want to charge more and pay more, great.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's their business, not our business,
I would even go there.
My business.
Connoisseur store. Fuck yeah, I want to check that out.
Sure, 100%. Let's see what they got, Yeah, man.
Let's do it.
Must be the bomb. But you can produce really good cannabis that doesn't need to cost that much at all, because at $10 a gram, which I say, that's the shitty stuff in the government stores. That's $4,480 for 1 pound of a fruit or vegetable or herb that is no different to produce than any other, that you would find in the marketplace, except for it can be. Cannabis can be grown indoors. It can be grown under expensive lights with all sorts of equipment. It can be trimmed and dried and cured, and all the rest of that is a lot more cost that's involved than going and buying some tomatoes at the store, especially on the drying process, where they lose a lot of their weight. So if they were selling it by weight, because you're buying dried buds, the moisture content's not there, and so it has to charge more. But farmers could bring it to market without curing it. They could bring it to market with the stalks with the buds on them, just like you'd buy a bunch of carrots. You could buy a bunch of cannabis stalks with buds on them, take them home, clip them off, cure them yourself. I mean, women and house people, I don't want to say housewives, it's not politically correct. Men do.
Home engineers, aren't they?
Yeah, the home engineers. These people understand how to deal with raw products and turn them into what you want and all the rest of that. That needs to be available. And also, people that have cannabis that was maybe produced outdoors or in hybrid greenhouses for not anywhere near the same type of costs as what these other operations are, they should be able to bring it to market at prices that make sense, not where they make hundreds of dollars per pound, and not where people have to pay tens and $20s of dollars per gram. It should be available at whatever the marketplace decides, and that's the marketplace that includes the consumers and the producers. So farmers need to be able to have the freedom, grow whatever you want. You've got a plot of soil there.
Stores selling their product, and
like they do with everything
now
else.
The customer gets it at a better price because it didn't take much to get there. You didn't have to go through some workers that get $20-$30 an hour.
Well, and the government itself taking 38%, off the top of the cost for taxes that are completely unjustified. For a moment on taxes. Taxes are designed to cover the costs of things that our society has incurred, and governments can do that by recognizing where these costs are happening, what is the root cause of those costs, and putting a tax on to cover the costs. That's how it's supposed to work. Not just a tax for tax sake. Not just, well, it's a commodity, so we're going to tax it. I mean, that makes no sense. And even if it did, you wouldn't want to have that same tax on that commodity if it's a benefit to people, and it's a benefit to people that don't have the money to pay the extra money. And that's where governments would say, hey, wait a minute, we're going to regulate this properly.
I definitely don't have extra money.
Not at $10 a gram, and more.
And $1,400 a month for rent.
Yeah, I know.
Definitely have no extra money.
So if the government has a role to play with respect to people's accessing cannabis, it's that, is to make sure that it's easily available and at prices that make sense for the people that don't have a lot of money in their lives. Because it's just a bloody plant. And if the government doesn't do it, then somebody else will. And and especially if there's no criminal sanctions against it. If the government doesn't allow it, but they don't go after people with the criminal law, then okay, well, it's going to be there for people. The poor people are still going to have some guy with a stand set up somewhere, and he's not going to be chased down by the cops. He's not going to be put in jail or anything.
Yep.
He's not part of the regular marketplace. He doesn't get to have a store because they won't give him a license, but he can still give it to people. He can still sell it to people. He can still have a stand. That would be okay. But for them to actively restrict access from the very people that need it the most, this is just something that is not something I can stand for, and I won't stand for.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone in that.
No.
This is what we're talking about, is we've been fighting this fight for a long time. We were fairly well organized. We did have a good groundswell of people that would come out and support us. We could have our 420 rallies and our cannabis days, and we'd have a lot of people, supporting that and coming out to that. And then they come up with this legalization, and then they come up with this pandemic that shuts everything down.
Yep.
And we come out of that with people saying, hey, no need to protest anymore. We got legalization, so, why are you guys even having a protest? And we got a whole bunch of our people that were, hardcores because they were producers that wanted to be legal, and they went with the legal route. I mean, you can't blame them. That's what they always wanted. They're trying to. Sure, they're not happy with how it is, but it's better than nothing. And they're so many of them were tired of being criminals. I mean, now they got families. They started growing when they were just in their late teens. Then they marry the clipping girl, and then they got kids running around, and now they got a family going on. But they're still in the same illegal business. And they're still looking over their shoulder all the time, worried about every cop that drives by. That's no way to live. People have families and kids.
I worry about every cop that pulls up behind me still, because I got my weed on me, right?
So, this is what's happened, is they've fragmented our community and really disrupted the movement that we had and the momentum that we had. And whether we can get it back or not, I'm not really sure. But thankfully, there's still some of us that are fighting for continuing to get that low barrier access. We've got a guest coming on the show today that is doing that exact same thing, and he's got personal reasons for doing that. And I mentioned in my letter of response back to Health Canada about the fact that the best way for us to have licensed product is to license the people that are supplying the product to us and have been for the last 6 years, because they have a proven track record. But more importantly, they're people that usually have a personal story involved with why they want to help us. And they should be allowed. Why the hell can't they be allowed into the marketplace? There needs to be low barrier access, not just for consumers, but for the producers that want to as well. And on that note, I mentioned off the top of the show, we've got the Heisenherb group has sent one of their best people. Dan is here. Come on in, Dan.
All right, Dan. Yeah.
How are you today,
over there. If not, I can go and adjust it.
You won't see it for a moment.
Yeah, we got about 10 seconds. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go adjust that for a minute.
You multitask.
Thanks.
Yeah, I do.
Nice
I do lots here.
I've always wanted to hang out.
And it's more than meeting you, because you've been involved with what we've been doing here for a while on your own there.
I have been trying to be. Well, not just me, my entire Heisenherb company. And there's a lot of good people in there.
So what do you do?
Well, what do I do?
Well, what does Heisenherb do?
Heisenherb is sort of a conglomerate of different things it does. Of course, we try to provide flour and whatever we can for the people. Edibles, we do a lot of edibles. It's actually how we started, was making candy.
You have a presence at the 420 and Cannabis Day and those things with a booth.
Yeah.
But you're online, I would imagine.
We are online. We mostly right now deal with just my phone number, because we don't want to draw a lot of attention. So what I do is I put my phone number out there everywhere, and I attach Heisenherb to it. And then we send people to our Facebook pages, but you got to be really careful, because they'll just take you down.
Yeah. So why do you do what you do?
Well, I guess it started off with both my brothers. I've got two brothers, both disabled. One of them
for a long time now.
Well, one of them was born with a disability. The other one was hit by a train when he was 6. Both of them,
and that's like 35 years ago.
Yeah, the one who was hit by a train is 40 now.
Yeah.
My other brother's a little older than me.
So I was off by a year, but
yeah. But and so I've watched over the years as both of them have tried lots of different things in order to deal with it. I also deal with some of my own pain, and so what I came to realize is that without the edibles, one of my brothers almost can't function.
Right.
He spends about 70% of his time in his room grasping his hip and his joints and being in severe pain.
Right.
When I started making cannabis in the first place, it wasn't to make cannabis, really. It was to make the edibles for my brother.
And this is the one that had the accident?
He's the one who was hit by the train, right?
Right. And so for 34 years, he's been suffering in this and I'm sure they've tried opioids and other things.
I've watched him go through so many different types of medications, types of treatments. There's been talk of surgeries, but the surgeries are very, because his body's so twisted up from the accident, they're a little afraid to do that.
Wow.
His injuries have been equated to those who, somebody who's been in the army and gotten blown up.
Does he walk?
He only has one leg, so he's in a wheelchair.
He's in a wheelchair.
Yeah. And so, not just for that, but that was kind of where it started. And
then he had trouble getting access to enough cannabis.
Right, and as back then it was extremely expensive too. I mean, it wasn't like it is now where it's starting to get to the point we can even start to afford it. But at the time it was $3,000 or, around for a pound.
Right.
And it was crazy. So I would take whatever I could and I would turn it into butter, and then we would make him products, and it's about the only thing that touches his pain. And as far as my other brother goes, I'm sure edibles would help him a lot more, but he can't afford them. He spends most of his check on just getting, whatever cannabis he can for smoking. I don't think that cannabis helps as much with physical pain, but with a lot of us, and especially with somebody like my brother who's gone through so much in his life as a result of, his disabilities, the mental trauma that is ensued upon because of it, cannabis definitely helps you deal with that and gives you a 100%. Calm feeling. So, in both cases, I was really drawn to that. And then I started doing this thing called Street Saviors, which was just going downtown.
When did you start that?
What's that?
When did you start that?
Well, I didn't start it. I mean, I was part of it. That was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. That we went down. And we had already been doing the cannabis, going to 420, Cannabis Day, all the other things before that.
So is that in Vancouver you were doing that?
Yeah, we were coming down. And then we got into the Street Saviors, and I went out one night, and I brought my son with me, and some of the things we saw that night I probably wouldn't really even want to talk about. It was just, there's a lot of disturbing stuff going on out there. Yeah. But you can see in the looks of the people what little comfort that they can get from you it means everything. Mm-hmm. And now I'm working, luckily, with one of your programs, with Rosie Rupta.
Surrey Cannabis Substitution Program?
And myself, Joint Cox, Michelle Cox, and Melissa, Melody Crystal, and some other people we are working with. We all go down there and, we try to help out. We put out what we can. And again, right. I'm getting to see these people who will come up to me and they'll say, maybe tonight I'm just going to sleep. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just going to sleep tonight. Yeah. And you can't even describe to somebody what that's like to see that. You know what I mean?
Back at the herb school, we'd have people that would say to us, "Man, thank you so much for being here. I mean, because I can get this, I'm on a different path."
Yeah.
That's what we heard lots of say. And it was exactly that. Now I can go home and sleep.
Right.
Now I can go home and watch something on TV and pass out and go to sleep instead of climbing the walls and going out, finding ways to get whatever they need and coming back and doing it or whatever, right? So it puts people on a different path for sure, and we see that all the time. I had a woman today come to the RV with her husband and 2 little kids, and the kids were so cute, and they were talking about, that's a motorhome, and I said, yeah, that's my motorhome. Oh, that's your motorhome. And as they were leaving, the mom turned to me and she said, thank you so much for what you folks are doing here. She said, it is literally a lifesaver for us. Yeah. And that's the comment we hear here all the time, is that we're saving lives here with this. Now, we know we're getting people off the hard drugs, and that definitely is saving lives. But, there's another way to save a person's life, and that is that, death isn't the worst. Living with disabilities in a world that doesn't respect that, living with limitations that you can't overcome because you don't have the tools to do that. And what I'm saying is, if you're miserable, then you may as well be dead. You'd be better off dead than do that. So when people can come from that state where they're miserable and they know they'd be better off dead, and now they got joy in their life again. They can smoke a joint. They can think about things differently. They can do what happens when you smoke a joint. You clean your life up a little bit. You clean up in your head. The house cleaning keeping
you
goes
get
on.
hungry, you eat.
You laugh.
It's a little bit of a separation or a border between you and the problems that you were experiencing, and allows you to take a breath.
Exactly.
That's the pain thing. It doesn't take away my scoliosis pain, but it puts that border so that I can forget. I know the pain is there, but I don't think about it as
And you
much.
can still function.
Exactly, yeah.
And you can still function.
That's right.
I know my limitations.
And-
I'll
and
be
that's what
bending
they're
down,
saying.
picking up quarters all day long,
Yeah.
sort of thing, right? You know.
Which of course is why I'm confused as to the whole point of what they're doing anyways. They're seriously enough to do both things. That's what I don't.
100%.
I mean, we could be saving lives and you guys can make your money.
That's right.
Yeah.
They can have their fancy
It's-
high-end stores.
yeah.
They can still sell, lots of cannabis at high prices to people that want to pay it for whatever reason. They'll do that. But they have to allow for the people that don't have resources to get it. And in fact, they should be making sure that they get it.
Yeah.
If the government was going to do any type of a service for people, they should be doing what we're doing.
Well, I mean, you shouldn't have to be doing it out of like RVs and in parking lots. There should be a storefront. There should be a place where people can come. One in every city.
100%.
One in every city.
Oh,
Why not?
more.
At least.
More.
At least, yeah.
We need 3 or 4 just in this neighborhood, maybe separated by 3 or 4 blocks. Just make it easy for people to have a storefront to walk into and get an edible instead of the guy on the street corner who's got some flap with some powder in it that he's going to want to sell.
That's one of your roach clips, please.
Not to mention the
Yeah.
Look at these little things.
Look at these little thing there.
A mushroom.
He's got one too right
And
there.
look what it says on it there.
Yeah.
Look at that.
There
These
you
are,
go. So this goes like this, right?
yeah, it's a
So-
So that way you're on your phone.
yeah.
So this is these are Heisenberg.
Well, they're called dinkies.
They're called dinkies.
And
They look like
they're
butt
a doobie-
plugs.
they're a doobie for your pinky, so you can do things while you're,
So you can go like
Right.
that, and you can still smoke your joint here, and then you can smoke your joint
Yeah,
there.
still tap
Yeah.
on your phone.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's Michelle's invention. She nailed it, but they're pretty popular.
Michelle's
using-
camera shy, right?
Yeah,
towards
she's
you.
camera shy. But I use one every day, so I mean I can
I
tell you
like that.
right now.
I can use that, and as I
Pinkies
use
for your
it,
pinky.
people looking at me, you're going to say truth. Truth, man.
Yeah.
Huh.
Keep the
So I
truth pointed forward.
could, whenever they say something I agree with, I can just hold that up and it say
That's
truth.
right. Yeah.
And then if they say something I don't like, I just cross that out and hold that up and it says change. Change your story, man.
Rosemary Mallory says, "Welcome to the Dinky family."
Oh.
Yeah. There's a bunch of us now.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or just you know what Dinks is, right? Double income, no kids.
Oh.
Did you yeah.
It's a doobie for your pinky.
But there's no pink in there, no P in there.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. All right. But the word "dink" is an acronym. It's a couple who don't have kids.
Yeah, it's not
Double
what I think
income,
it is.
no
What I
kids.
think it think is.
No. All right, we're just getting into too many dink words
Super
here.
useful.
Yes,
You
yeah,
remember
yeah.
the era that I grew up in. So
Yes,
You shouldn't go there.
You should go there.
People that are sensitive, politically sensitive, shouldn't go there.
All right,
Don't take a time trip back into like the
Pat
60s,
Warnke wants one.
70s, and 80s
All right.
if you got a sensitive heart. Because we didn't hold back in those days. And it may not have been all right, I agree, but it is the way it was, It was a different time.
And on a patch, you can put the letters BB for best buds, right? Yes. You can message him and he'll probably say, yeah, Glenn that's a good idea, Glenn. Because he has shirts. I will have one of his
Maybe
shirts.
Pat will sell them in his stores.
Yeah, maybe he'll just send you the logo. Maybe
I would imagine Pat's going to have stores again.
he's going to have stores
Yeah.
again, yeah.
They are one of a kind, so you have to be part of a club.
Ah,
see.
well, yeah, well, we'll make a part of the club, right?
Well,
And then
we
we
want
expand
Pat.
the club to
You
Saskatchewan.
definitely want Pat in your club.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
definitely want Pat in
Run
your
the
club.
club.
So do I get to plug anything?
Sure, yeah, and you get to talk more.
Oh, awesome. Well, I just
What
wanted
did you
to
want to
talk
talk about?
about Cannabis Day.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Because I'm super excited
It's
to be
on
part
my
of
list.
Cannabis Day. Okay, well, sorry, I didn't jump ahead.
No, you're not
That's
jumping
good.
ahead at all.
So we're going to be
Right
down
on
there. We're going to have a huge lounge. We're going to be right set up and ready to go.
Down
So
where?
what do you mean by a lounge?
Down a lounge. Okay.
Tell me about your lounge.
After a few years of going down there ourselves to Cannabis Day, 420, and other things like that back in the day, we realized there's nowhere really to sit down. nowhere to really roll your joints, and except that there were
So if
sometimes
you know somebody that has a
right,
table,
unless
you know
somebody, so it was difficult, and they were always complaining about kids lying on the sand or on the yard, and look at what they're doing to our youth. You know what I mean? And so what we actually, I got to get it to Michelle again. What we did is we decided to start a lounge, and the lounge is where you come in, you sit down, you smoke some pot. I entertain you with my wonderful personality, and then you move on to whatever it is else you want to do, right? Or if you need a minute, you're greening out, you just want to have a glass of water. We have glasses of water and all kinds of stuff like that for you. We keep bottles of water there.
Typically we have a green out tent for people that need to sit for a minute. But
this is a pre-green out tent.
Yeah, but just you don't have
Get
to.
You on your way to
you don't have to be greening out to go to this. You can just.
We hit you pretty hard with our dabs too, so you might want to sit down.
As long as you're warning people ahead of time, you can hit them as hard as you want.
That's how I kind of met you.
Yeah,
right?
that's actually we sat together for a couple hours.
Cannabis,
That's right.
Yeah, for a while, and then his personality met my personality.
Right.
So when you say entertain, I suspect you also mean educate a little bit.
I do. I try to educate.
What do you like to talk about to people now?
I think mainly I like to talk about the fact that the reason that we're even in this position is because of the way in which the government has decided to handle it. I talk a lot about the points that, frankly, you make. I've been watching you for years, and it's not because I'm a talking parrot or anything, but just what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. It rings a lot of bells.
Feel free to tell everybody what I say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
what do you agree with?
I'll never sue you.
Well, obviously, truth, hope, and change. No, we're talking about the way in which cannabis has been handled has been clearly handled as a way in which to bolster the pockets of those who already have, and to make sure that whatever is left over isn't used improperly or given away too much. Or,
amen, brother.
we wouldn't want to have leftovers where the homeless and other folks like that could have,
no.
Because that would be terrible.
Those people deserve to have nothing.
But I like to point out that the government has been acting this way about just about everything for a long time. This shouldn't be a really big surprise to us. I can't remember the last time where I felt like they did something specifically just for us, just for the people. Now they do stuff. They throw bones in there because they have to. It's a political game, right? Yeah. But the truth is they essentially stole the money.
They throw a bunch of bones out there just before the next election, and then they tell you all the good things that they did.
Yeah.
And all the rest of that for sure.
Yeah.
But most of what they say is a smokescreen.
Yeah.
They prey on the poor people and the disadvantaged people. They use them as scapegoats to justify harsh government policies. They use them to be able to use taxpayer dollars to pay friends of theirs to provide services for people. It's not done the way that it should be done by people who were given a job, paid money, and the motivation is to get the money that you're being paid by doing your job, and your job is to protect the people that are paying you the money and provide services to them without getting in their way.
That's right.
We need to revisit what we think a public servant is. Because that word has little meaning anymore.
Well, the country is a business now.
It is for sure.
We can tell ourselves it's a country all we want, but pretty well all the countries have now moved to becoming full-fledged business.
This chunk of land here that we occupy with an invisible border down the middle of it that separates us from the United States is being controlled by a corporation.
Right.
And they allow us all of these different freedoms and things. And if we're obedient, then we can get along here.
Yeah.
But they're the ones in charge, and it's just lip service being given to the fact that this is supposed to be a free country, and they're supposed to be public servants and a democratically elected government. They go along with all of that because that's the illusion that they're creating, and that's what people are buying into. That allows them to have the control that they have, but really it's a 4-year rotating dictatorship. That's being the strings of these puppets that are, because we can put in different parties. There's two. At any given time, there's two parties. Either one of which are both being controlled by that same group of financially elite people. And the third one may or may not be. But if the third one ever got close to being one of the top two to get a chance of being, then they would be.
They'd be approached.
And then that's they'd be more than approached. They'd be you work for us.
This is the thing. Do we really even is the government even really who's in charge? Because when you think about it, the truth is that we don't even. If we really wanted to do anything about it, we don't even really know the names of the people who are in charge.
Absolutely.
And that's by design, I'm sure.
Trudeau works for a group of people
Yeah.
that, we know some of their names. We know some of these super rich families in Canada, but most of them you wouldn't know. You wouldn't even recognize. Each province has their huge, wealthy family, basically,
Yeah.
that controls things in that province.
Yeah.
It's been corrupt here in Canada for a long time. Maybe the government of Canada has just done a better job of painting itself as this tolerant, polite, country that we have here, you know. But in reality, they're just as connected to these evil corporate forces as is the U.S. government, as is the Chinese government, as is all of these governments. And this was easier than slavery for them, right?
It's a form of slavery.
Yeah, slavery wasn't easy. Capturing people, containing them, making them work, having to feed them and house them and let
We're
them
doing
sleep
right, the same
and
thing.
all the rest, and justify it in an ever more just society. That wasn't working well. It's expensive and it was hard work and what have you. So they basically just morphed into this society where we just pay a whole bunch of fees and fines and taxes and other things, and they get to provide us with all the things that we need in our life because they tell us what we need. But you need toothpaste and you need a pillow and they sell you all these things at inflated prices, by companies that are all part of the same group.
Yeah.
So that's what's been going on for a long, long time. But with cannabis, here's how you can see it all. It's easy to see and expose this corruption that's there. People don't realize they're just paying their fine up front when they're walking into a government store, and they walk out and they've plunked down $350. They got a little bit of weed in their hands, And now nobody's going to take it from them, not a cop or anything, so they feel safe about that. Because it used to be that they'd go and buy that same amount, they'd probably pay $200 instead of $350.
Yeah.
And then the cops would come and take it away from you. And now you got to go back to the same guy and buy another $200
Plus pay your
worth.
$150 fine.
And pay the $150 fine. So they made it much easier for all that. But everybody's still getting paid.
Oh, it's the same.
It's the same. The government's still getting their fine off you.
In Ontario, my friends had weed delivered to their apartment. $230 for an ounce and a quarter.
Wow.
Yes, I was like,
that's
holy crap! I said $100 for an ounce in BC. What?
And that's not even bad compared to some other parts around the world. What they're paying in New Zealand through their legal system, which is crazy. There, you can only have 14 grams every 2 weeks, I think it is. I don't want to start quoting the New Zealand system.
Some people can charge 80.
But the government producers of that are getting large. It might be 280 for the 14 grams that they can get every 2 weeks or something like that.
Wow, it's crazy.
Crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah.
And I don't want to live in a crazy world. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
And you must feel sort of the same there when you look at what's going on with your brothers and their lack of access, and it must drive you nuts.
It does.
Because it's almost worse on family. I can't say that because who really knows, eh?
Yeah.
But I know your brothers are going through hell. But as a family member, as a brother, having to watch that and feeling helpless about that, and you want to do something, right?
Yeah. I've watched my brother sometimes lie on the ground, the one who was hit by the train, and because of his hip pain, it's a sciatic issue, and it would go on for 8 hours. He eats some edibles, he may go to sleep. That saves you 8 hours of agonizing
100%.
pain.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of years wishing there was an easier way for me to, give him more.
Yeah.
But the truth is that's not. You're right. It's much more visceral when it's my family. But
and you're able to look after him to some degree now because of what you've done, right?
We look after each other.
You've maneuvered yourself into a position with Heisenberg that you have access to things that can help him, and so you're able to do that in a more reasonable way than someone who doesn't have those connections.
Well, I started a candy company for that purpose, so that we started making the edibles, and that's when we started going down there doing candy. But the truth is again, it's not. Once I started to realize it's not just my family though. I go out there and Langley, which I love.
Well, you have a much larger family than you thought you had. Yeah.
But Langley, which I love, now we have started to see, more outbreaks of people who are having trouble, more people who are going through the same types of things as we're seeing here and as we're seeing in Surrey. It's moving
as
out
they
there,
get to be more of an urban center, as people get pushed out of these areas.
Which tells me the problem isn't changing, it's just moving.
They're just moving it around.
Right.
And in fact, they're making it worse for sure. The people were bad enough off that were in the tents. And I'm not in favor of tents on sidewalks the way that was here. that wasn't tolerable
Safe.
for
It
sure.
wasn't safe.
How they dealt with it is also not tolerable and not humane. And what the hell? They really hurt those people that were already hurting before.
Yeah.
These are
Took away all their
damaged,
stuff, threw away.
vulnerable, suffering people that they caused more suffering and damage to for sure. And now those people have moved out into the other areas, New Westminster and what have you. And now there's all kinds of problems out in New Westminster.
Yeah.
There's like stabbings and there's a
Langley.
carjacking the other day in Langley. And I didn't mean to isolate New Westminster. It's just that that's where they had a carjacking recently. One of the people that had been pushed out of Vancouver decided to steal somebody's car and jumped in the car, and there was a big chase through the streets, and I don't know what else happened after that. I'm not up to speed on that story enough to be able to report on it. But the person that they interviewed, one of the councillors from New Westminster, was talking about the increased problems that they've been having since the clampdown on the tents in Vancouver happened. That there's a huge upswing of all kinds of different problems associated with homelessness and what have you. So, yeah, government policy not about looking after what they should be looking after.
And there was the
And
dark
it's starting to really
Well,
show.
what I really don't understand, though, and I mean, maybe you can answer, but there has to be somebody out there who could come up with a system where everybody gets what they want. Do you know what I mean? It's not as though they have to do this in order to have the control. And that's the part I don't understand, is we could give it a medicine, and you know what I mean? This is a medicine for people that need it. It might be a fun thing for some, but the people who need it need it.
In my opinion, the flaw in what you're trying to understand is in believing that everybody can get what they want.
Yeah.
Because some people want more than that they can have in a system like that. Everybody wants to rule the world, and everybody wants to be Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great, and they want to take over everything, and they want to own everything.
That's a terrible reason, but it's true right now.
And who these people are, I mean, they come by it naturally. Everybody comes by who they are naturally.
Yeah.
I think that people are responding to their environment with the genetics that they're born with. And when people feel deprived and small, they do what they have to do to try to make themselves feel safe and big. And money and control and power are ways of doing that. I'm not saying that all of the billionaires in the world are people that feel small and scared, but when anybody who's a billionaire, other than those who inherit it, basically have worked their asses off, have worked basically 18-hour days and done just a phenomenal amount of effort into making all that empire work. It isn't easy at all, and they're driven individuals. And there's no stop button. Like this is once I got a billion. It's not like once I got a billion, I'm done. I'm not taking anything else.
Let's make another billion.
We got to get that next billion. And the flaw is in that these people have these personalities where they don't have a stop button. They're there to accumulate everything they can. They think that when they die, whoever has the most wins, and they don't realize that whoever gave the most wins. And it's too bad that they're blinded by that, but that's a type of individual that's going to be with us always. There's going to be people that will bully other people to take what they have to, if they can, financially or whatever.
It's going. You just burned your finger almost. I can see the smoke coming there, buddy.
I felt no pain.
That's good. You've probably done that over the 50 years.
The only pain I'm feeling is in trying to explain this society that we're living in, where we're always going to have those financially elite, unethical, driven people that, given the ability, will exploit.
Yeah.
They will pay too little. They will charge too much. They will do all of those things. They will maximize their profits at the expense of the poor people. They don't care.
Well, I'm not satisfied with that, so I'm going to fight back.
Well, what we need is government in between them and the poor people that make sure that those groups are properly regulated so that they can't gouge and they can't monopolize and they can't exploit. They can't pay too little. They can't charge too much. That there's some regulatory thing in place that just doesn't allow for that. In a way that still allows for people to be billionaires. If you want to work 18-hour days and work your ass off and satisfy the needs of millions of people, then you get to have $1 billion.
I agree.
You know, why not? You know, that should be there. But you can't get it by monopolizing a marketplace where you just use your resources to exclude the competition. You charge prices that are above what people can afford and way above what you needed to charge to bring that to market, you know. Talk about cannabis
You
again.
mean you're like ethical businessmen?
Ethical business.
That could be a new model. Where
Oh, it is a model,
Yeah.
and there are ethical businessmen, and they do quite well, and people understand them, and they get to talk about how ethical they are, and they get good business because of that, and people support them, and that's all good. But also in the marketplace are these other people that are just there to snipe on people, to get whatever they can, to maximize everything.
Right?
And whenever they can, you know, cut out a niche for themselves and somehow protect that niche, and then, you know, you don't have any other options, you want what they have, and then they charge way more than what it took to get there, and then they all of a sudden they're getting their billions too quickly.
Yeah.
And the downside is that there's those people that don't get it at all.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's a benefit to people, I mean, they need to be able to get that.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be allowed to exclude other competitors from the marketplace with some sort of a protection racket, and then overcharge and eliminate the poor people from access. And of course, the one that really exposes that is cannabis. Like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
That is exactly what they're doing. Maintaining artificially high prices that exclude the people that really need it. And we're talking about a commodity that during a public health emergency is one of the best vehicles off of those risky, deadly drugs.
Save people's lives.
So enough already. Like, enough already. It was bad enough when that wasn't going on.
You don't need to go on a waiting list for edibles, whereas if you need treatment, you're going to be on a waiting list for 30, 60 days trying to get off the stuff that you have to wait. Right? You can start edibles today. Right?
Yeah.
You know, high dose edibles are readily available, or maybe you know somebody who can get them. But yes, right?
You can go to the government store and buy them at 10
But
milligrams of chocolate
you
bar.
don't need to get into any treatment center or anything either. You just start doing it.
And they're talking about that, to be fair.
Yeah. They are?
Sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
they are talking about that. The Bureau of Competition in Canada is lobbying the government, and that's one of their points. They've got 3 or 4 different points that they're making about the unfairness of how the government's treating the cannabis businesses.
Yeah.
And one of them is about edibles. That the example that they give is that they need to be able to compete with the underground marketplace.
Because
and they're doing a bad job of that when it comes to edibles.
Yeah, because who wants to buy?
Well, they do. They actually make quite a bit of money selling drinks.
Yeah,
government drinks.
Yeah.
At 10 milligrams a pop.
Wow.
A pop. But the chocolate bars are also 10 milligrams a pop, or per dose.
Yeah. And
to get that 100 milligrams that a person would want to have to try to offset the use of the hard drugs, you got to eat 10 chocolate bars.
Yeah.
Well,
so these companies are complaining that they can't compete.
Well, it's not the company; it's the Competition Bureau of Canada.
Yeah.
That's complaining on behalf of these companies that they're not able to compete fairly with the underground marketplace. And so what's the government's answer to that? And I'm making this up because the government hasn't given an answer yet. But the government's answer will be that they will maintain their 10 milligram per dose regimen because that's what's safe for people.
Right.
And they will just put more of our tax dollars into enforcement against those unregulated providers where people are getting the higher doses. And that'll be their answer to how they will compete.
And do you think their safe thing is because in case a child sees this candy and eats it, that 10 milligrams is not going to mess that kid up very much? Is that maybe their safe thinking because it's always
I don't think it's about kids.
Like so.
As I read what they have to say at Health Canada about why they restrict the access to higher dose edibles, and I don't mean to call edibles that are 100 milligrams even high dose.
Yeah. I don't know. I eat 1,500.
Yeah, they're only high dose in comparison to what the government's got going on, but they're real normal dose or low dose compared to what a lot of people that need them. The people that really need them use a lot more than that. But Health Canada seems to be of the position that these things are dangerous.
Yeah.
And that anything over 10 milligrams is dangerous. And if you're going to do that, that's okay. But, you have to have a doctor supporting, that and going along with you because he needs to monitor what's going on to be able to tell you whether you ate too much. Well, bullshit. You know, you wake up in the morning or 2 days later after doing the edibles and you talk to yourself. You don't need to talk to the doctor.
Yeah.
And you say, holy shit, I think that was too much.
Yeah.
Of course, you've been saying that to yourself for the last 2 days inside your bulging head.
Yeah. As you're sleeping away and drool's crawling out of your mouth.
All the doctor's going to do is he's going to say, okay, so how was the experience? Oh yeah, and did your head feel big? Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. So he's going to try to interpret what you say to the time. You know yourself. Take less.
Yeah.
Take less.
It's not comfortable.
But that does seem to be their thing.
Yeah.
Is that it's just too dangerous. Mom and Dad at Health Canada are very, very concerned about us children.
Well, if we were honest, we'd be selling the plants in the grocery store.
Yes.
Because we sell bleach, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I don't let my kid drink bleach. I keep it in a cupboard and I tell him don't touch that.
Well,
and he doesn't.
I think before we went on air, we touched a little bit on house plants and tomatoes. And
poinsettias. Yeah.
Yeah, and poinsettias.
Yeah.
When you brought it, even without poinsettias, just about all the plants in your house are poisonous.
Yep.
You do not want your toddler, crawling over and chewing on the leaves of just about any of the plants that you have growing in your house.
No.
They don't, typically. If they do, then they're become part of the statistics that we have at the Poison Control Center of all these children that get poisoned regularly by getting into plants that they shouldn't, and that does not include cannabis. We'll talk about that in a second. But if it's serious and if it's involved with the poison control people, it's because there are poisonous plants of all sorts in our environment, inside and outside of our homes. There's garages and basements and underneath sinks and closets and things that are all kinds of nasty chemicals that people store there that kids find. They get into this shit. I got one here.
I know.
You want mine too?
No, that's right.
And when I say that, not including cannabis, there has been an increased incident of people reporting that their children have been poisoned by cannabis and taken them to emergency wards all across North America as these products become legal and parents don't fear arrest and losing their children when their children get into the edibles that they had. Prior to legalization, it was rare for a parent to take their child to a hospital, when that happened, even though they would be quite concerned about it and worried about their kid. And in some cases, they did go to the hospitals with their kids and say, my kid's gone into something.
The parents are panicking, right?
Yeah, and that's when you have the stories that they found it on the side of a trail, when they were out for a walk. The kids must have got into it, or whatever, right? Because the parents were afraid, for good reason, that they might lose their kids, they might lose their liberty. Now they're under the microscope, and they could lose their jobs, and small towns and all that stuff included. So with legalization, now you're allowed to have cannabis. You're allowed to make your own edibles. Your kids got into your edibles. You can take them to the hospital if that's what you think you need to do. Yeah. And a lot more parents are doing that.
You need to do a series of videos that you can put on YouTube of how to deal with it if your kid get into your edibles. Right. We don't need to give any kids any edibles, but there's lots of kids when they're sleeping, you lift their arm up and they can just drop it. So we can use that and say, if your kid is doing this, just let them sleep it off. You don't need to rush in. You don't need to have your blood pressure go up.
My question is, why do they trust me to take care of the edibles they sell me, but not trust me to have the plant and make the edibles they sell me?
But they do sort of, because in most provinces you can grow 4 plants. You can grow them as big as you want and as potent as you want, which begs the question: if these things are so dangerous for children, why would you be allowed?
It's a bit of a mixed message.
Why would you be allowed to have even 4 plants if they're dangerous? Well, they're not dangerous, but you're only allowed to have 4 plants, and the reason is commercial. It's all economics.
But you have
they don't want you selling it to other people because they want to sell it to other people. And they don't want to have a whole bunch of other people's cannabis available to people because they want you to go to the store and buy it. It's not because the kids are not going to be safe.
Tell them when they made me move Austin because you had 4 plants outside, but you were only allowed to have 96 in the house.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a, one of the old licenses, the MMARAs, ARs. And I was growing a bunch of plants in my house, and my ex had decided that she was mad, so she called and the cops came, looked at my license, made her take her kid out of there because they were all worried about it. Looked at my license, came through the house, stomped around a bunch, and then realized they really couldn't do anything. Kind of gave me a hard time, but there was a couple plants out back, and they said, "Listen, you can't have them both inside and outside. Who do you think you are?"
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's just crazy talk, right? But okay. So we pulled them out. of the ground and
What did you
basically
say?
killed these two big, beautiful plants. But that's,
Maybe
you
I
know.
moved my kid for 24 hours.
Right.
You know, the way in which
Because that was what was unsafe. Not
My
having,
baby was going to
not
crawl
having.
to a ridge.
I wish I could bring you on camera, but we have. That's fine. You know, it's not that you have 96 plants inside the house where the baby is.
No, that's
It's that there's a couple plants
four
outside.
which of course is where the baby hangs out in the
Well,
backyard with,
please,
with the pot plants.
But with all the other plants in the backyard as well. You know?
yeah.
Excuse me, sir. Have you seen this rose over here? It seems to have these actual weapons on it.
Yeah.
You can have only 4 as many poinsettias in your house.
Yeah, I can have a poinsettia farm if I want to.
Yeah.
And you can have poison ivy or stinging nettle or whatever else in the
Yeah, and
backyard
a
as
bottle
well.
of bleach for each of them.
Yep.
A pound of bleach for each of them. No limit on how much you can buy. Fill your trunk.
Yeah.
Along with that big plastic sheet that you got next to the knives.
That's another conversation.
You can even buy ammonia.
You remember the Family Guy episode of when they got pulled over, and there was like blood everywhere. You know, all these signs that there had been like definitely some serial killer happening here with this car, and the cops are all good about all that. They're about to walk away, and all of a sudden they spot the bag of weed on the floor. Oh no! Oh man.
Family Guy gets it. Yeah.
Well, and I wasn't all that pleased with their episodes on cannabis. They kind of did give into the stereotype of the stupid stoner a little bit, you know, that once they legalized, then the news guy was all stoned and couldn't figure out what he was supposed to say and shit like that.
Yeah.
Come on, bag of weed.
I'm visibly high, okay? Like, I'm visibly high. I start this show with a joint,
Yeah, with
you know?
a joint, yeah.
I'm smoking a joint when I start the show almost every time. 20 minutes later, we have the full-on session, you know?
Yeah.
I got, you know, special weed. This one was from the candy bar. I'm using it again this week.
The Death Bubba.
Yeah,
that was
you know,
good
that was
last
so
week.
good. I decided to bring it on the show again.
Nice.
I got all these people giving me all these beautiful weeds and stuff, and we try them on the show. So I mean, I'm obviously high. I don't try to hide it,
No.
but you know, I don't think I'm mumbling my words too much,
No.
and
Makes sense
you know,
so
I'm
far.
able to talk for the most part. You know, it's been almost
We
4 years
function
now.
with it every day.
And I don't think people are watching because they want to watch that stone guy fumble over his words and they make no sense at all. And they could and they would, you know. If I was a guy that smoked some weed and then got really dumb and said a whole bunch of really stupid things, they would watch that. Lots of
might get
people
more
would watch
views
that.
then.
Might get more views. It's a thing. People like to see that. That's kind of what they hope they're going to see when they're going to see a pot show.
Yeah,
You know, and see some
yeah.
stoned guy make stupid comments and what have you.
Yeah.
But trust me, people in positions of great responsibility, creators, business people, engineers, so many people are under the influence of cannabis when you're dealing with them, you know, in their offices, you know, on the job site, wherever it is. Cannabis, for most people, they don't tell anybody because you can't tell anybody. You live in a world where you can go get arrested, you can lose your job, you can lose your kids. So for most of my life, you know, the mainstream people don't tell other people that they use cannabis.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes in a close gathering of friends, they'll share some spliffs, so, you know, a group of them out in the back.
Yeah.
But it's not something that was public knowledge. You couldn't let it be public knowledge. It would come back to haunt you for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
I-
but
I-
high-functioning people are using cannabis, and it's part of the reason they're as high-functioning as they are.
That's right.
You know, you learn to understand the effects and you use it as a focusing tool. It doesn't dull your senses like alcohol does and doesn't allow you to capture them back until the alcohol wears off.
That's right.
This is a substance that goes in and it elevates your senses. It amplifies the different feelings and the experiences as music sounds better, as sunset looks fantastic. This chocolate cake is fantastic and everything is so good. Sex is better. Everything is amplified by cannabis, which can be impairing and debilitating to start with for the first part when people are using it. But for the most part, people like it. People learn how it works for them, how they can use it without it being anything that's obvious to anybody else. And like I said, the truth is a lot of these high-functioning people are high on weed when you're dealing with them,
But they
you just
don't
have
make
no
it
idea.
public. I have a friend
not
named
public.
that's like
Yeah,
a
so
very,
many.
very, very, very famous in the music business, but not allowed to post that you smoked a joint with them.
I would
Right?
argue
You
that
know, or whatever, right? And you don't talk about that when they're around.
Yeah.
And
I would
unless
argue
they
on
start
less
the
than-
conversation, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't mean to-
Sorry.
I would argue I'm less impaired though high than I am sober because
For sure.
I spend so little time, completely sober that I really don't. I feel jittery. I've got a bit of social anxiety, stuff like that. I smoke a joint, and there's nobody I can't talk to. It's not like it debilitates me or makes it unable for me to have a whole conversation. So I don't know.
It does the opposite. We live in a scary world, really, if you want to think about it. And they say that 1 in 7 Canadians can be considered disabled, and I would argue that of the remaining, there's a lot of those that are really invisibly disabled, or on the verge of being able to be qualified as that. We all suffer with a lot of different things here, and cannabis. It helps us. It doesn't impair us in all of these things. That's why we use it. That's why people like it. And if you're a cannabis consumer on a regular basis, things happen. You get drama happening in your life, stuff happens, and you probably had the same thought in your mind that myself and so many others have, which is, man, I need to smoke a joint.
Yeah.
Because that's the medicine that you go to. It's like somebody who is just worn right out, they still got another shift to put in, they need a cup of coffee. Man, I need a cup of coffee. Or it's the end of the day, they've had a tough day, they get home, they need a glass of wine. It's no different than that.
No, it's the same. Exactly.
So, it is something that really helps people.
However, I would also argue it's something more. Because I can say that I quit both cigarettes and I quit drinking using cannabis, and I would not have been able to do it without its help.
Right.
And I would never go back. I just smoke my pot now, and I'm totally. And
I quit cigarettes when I was 13 years old. I hadn't started smoking weed yet. That was a couple of years later that I started smoking weed. Never smoked cigarettes again after 13. And with alcohol, absolutely I was using alcohol and weed. And as soon as I turned 19, on my 19th birthday, it was clear to me that I had no interest in drinking alcohol to excess ever again. I'd done plenty of that growing up in East Vancouver and Surrey.
Got your fill.
And but it never occurred to me to stop using cannabis. It has never occurred to me to stop using cannabis.
No.
It's been foisted on me a couple of times in my life. My wife, who thought that I should go to Narcotics Anonymous because I just didn't want to stop smoking weed, pretty much every day, But so I went to Narcotics Anonymous and listened to these people tell stories about the narcotics that they were using and how badly they needed them, and that if they were home without them, the 4 walls were closing in on them, and they just had to go and get some, and all the different torments and this and that. And I'm sitting there, I've never missed a day's work.
Yeah. This wasn't the weed experience.
I think you should be able to, because I've been to NA. I went to NA for 2 years before I ever started going to AA. And the only reason I went to AA is this particular conversation.
I see.
I would sit there and they would say, I smell weed on you. Maybe you should, not be here. And I would say, I see you smoking in the driveway after.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And yours is addictive.
Yeah.
Mine isn't.
Right.
So which one of us shouldn't be here?
Right.
Right? I don't know, man. I don't think that it's the same thing.
It's not at all. It's not at all.
And
there's
booze,
a real need right now to get the treatment centers to understand that cannabis should be incorporated as part of a person's recovery, and if they desire that can be used to help them recover and get off those other drugs. But by banning all of it, by not allowing them to have any weed, so many people get kicked out of those places
For
because
smoking a joint.
for smoking a
and
joint.
to help them keep off.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
I've done it.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it is nuts. For
And how
anybody
do you
that
get off
really
crack?
understands it, it's nuts. And the treatment centers need to understand this if they're motivated to help people get off.
If they're really motivated.
If they're really motivated to help people get off this stuff.
Hence the truth of
Hence the
truth
truth.
paid.
Yeah.
Change.
You probably heard me on other shows talk about what we discovered about the treatment industry. That in many cases they're not really our allies here at all. We're trying to help people get off of those drugs that are stuck on. You want to use opiates, that's fine, and they're the right thing to use for some situations that happen in life. They're not meant for long-term, daily, repeated use. And if you do that, then the benefits wane, the complications increase, and the ability to get off it becomes more and more difficult. So, we're here to say, there's a way out of that for people that want out of that. If you want on that, if you want to use them, that's fine. If it works for you, that's great. There's no good or bad drugs. There's just good and bad relationships with drugs. And it's when the drugs that we're talking about, that we're helping people get off of, have a hold of people because the withdrawal is harder than what they can go through, then an avenue out of that is what they need, and we supply that for people for sure. But there was another point I was making. See, for those people that do tune in to see the stoners forget where they were, we do that too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every show once or twice
Yeah.
I forget where I was going with something.
That's the dangers of marijuana.
And old age.
I could live with that kind of danger.
Yeah.
That's
That and pizza.
Yeah. Pizza.
There's a pretty good chance that what I was talking about wasn't all that much fun.
Somebody say pizza.
You know?
Quick call for a pizza.
You know, maybe that is the real value of cannabis, is that people start going off in directions that you don't want to go down there. You don't want to be talking about that stuff
But
all the
that's-
time. You know?
Engineers like
So, well,
yeah, right.
but you know, that is the thing. I mean, and I talked about that a little more lately on the last few shows about the euphoric value of THC. The cannabidiol is proving to be quite the medicine. And it really is something else. THC in and of itself is also a very good medicine. It's an anti-inflammatory, but there's other anti-inflammatories amongst the other cannabinoids that you would be ingesting. The microcannabinoids that you get in whatever entourage of cannabis that you're ingesting are very important medicinally for a whole bunch of different things here. They all work in conjunction with each other, and they have a lot of benefits for people that use it. And now I forgot where I was going with all that again, too.
Twice.
See how fun this is? No, so the truth is that cannabis is a supplement, a mirror of the chemicals that are created by your own human body to deal with these things. It's an outside source of that which we manufacture inside, and it could be argued that the human body is built on what the human body was fed over millennia, and it seems like one of the main staple food sources of the human body and the other vertebrates was cannabis, because of the endocannabinoid system that we all share that would have been developed over millennia to result in this. And I'm getting to the point, and I know what the point is.
Oh.
And the point is that people use this because they don't feel good. You get to that point where your body and your situation tells you, I need to smoke a joint. You know what that means, and that's what you want, and that's what you need. If you're not feeling good, if you're suffering pain, if you're suffering from the dramas of life that are are so tough to deal with emotionally and mentally many times, smoking a joint distracts you from that. It's that THC euphoria that nature has been so wonderful to include with the medicine. It's not just like Buckley's that if you take it, it'll work, but it doesn't taste good. It's like, this stuff doesn't taste bad, it works, and it gives you some time to feel like you're just one with nature for the length of time that the healing's taking place.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful addition. It's like giving a kid a sucker. Well, that was never good with dentists giving kids sucker.
No.
It was something.
Just kept them
there's
coming
always
back.
It was something
Kept them coming
serious
back,
going
yeah.
on with that.
Yeah.
But the idea of giving something sweet along with something painful, and that's what cannabis is doing with this sacred herb and this amazing, vapor that comes off when these resin glands give up their medicine, is the THC in there gives you that like distracted, humorous, whatever. So anyway, I'm going on too long.
No, I'm
the
listening to
other
you.
downside of cannabis for me too, especially.
Well, I had to explain the endocannabinoid system is that inside your body you have certain cells there that have one purpose, and they're supposed to disintegrate when they're done. And sometimes those cells don't do that. When you activate your endocannabinoid system, it reminds those cells to disintegrate, and that's why it makes you a lot healthier.
I see.
Right. So.
And I do want to think I should correct something from last week's show. I think I made it sound like the decarboxylation process happened when the temperature got to that temperature where the resin glands released the medicine.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's true. The decarboxylation happens before that within the membrane of the cannabinoid, and the temperature at which it releases it is higher yet.
Okay.
So THC, as to the knowledge I was given, is the final one. It has the highest threshold for temperature of the cannabinoid. So when you're using your vaporizer, you want that 375 or whatever it is, because that hits the THC, and that's the one that's the last one to go. But the actual process of turning it from delta or from THC-A to delta 9 happens before that at a lower temperature within the cannabinoid. So I wanted to clarify that from last week's show, trying to be accurate about these things. And I'm not a scientist, and there's a whole lot more to all of this stuff for sure.
Okay.
And perhaps the information that I've been given that I'm relying on, wasn't the whole truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
or we remembered it wrong.
I don't usually remember it wrong.
Okay, well, how old are you?
Because if I did, then I would know that I did, and then I would be. So I don't know that in my experience, I never remember anything wrong.
Well, I just heard that, recall is only about like 67% accurate or something like that. Yeah,
it depends.
I forget.
I forget. Well, Harry Lorraine, we talked about Harry Lorraine's memory systems. And in there, if you understand how to lock a memory in, then that memory stays there, it stays locked in, it's there to access whenever you want. But so many things are fleeting, and they're confused with other things. And over the course of time, they get degraded and merged, and so what you think was the truth after a while wasn't really what went down there. But other things, they become locked in a way that, you remember accurately, if you've used those techniques. And you don't have to take Harry Lorraine's systems or courses to know those techniques. He's actually just eliciting the techniques that people use and always have used to remember things. And some people do it better than others, and some people understand that muscle better than others. And he's just drawn out, the different dynamics of it and said, well, here's why it works, and here's when it works. And if you want to remember something, imagine it. Take a couple of moments of time, because paying attention is the biggest thing to remembering something, is to actually pay attention. Don't let it, in one ear out the other, go sideways as you're really focusing on something else. Take a moment, focus on it. And then, if you want to remember it, make it bizarre, make it extreme, make it hilarious, make it violent, make it sexual, make it destructive, make it something extreme.
Hence Hollywood.
And, with the complete visualization intact with what it is you're trying to remember. And if you structure that properly, well, then it's there, and you won't forget, because nobody forgets all those explosions that happened right in front of them, or all those, when a million bats came flying out of your nose, for whatever reason you would have that visualization, I'm not sure, but you might, because as you're trying to remember a person's name with their face, you want to imagine a feature of their face that is not their hair or beard, because those can change, but the face itself pretty much is stable there. So if the person has a big nose, you might play on that. You want to imagine the name has a thing, as an association with a thing. So you rhyme it with something so that it comes up with a thing that you can visualize. And then you visualize that thing that the name is coming out of or interacting with that particular feature of the face that, is the outstanding feature of the face. The thing that when you see that person, that's what stands out about the high cheekbones, big nose, big ears, whatever, big
blue
lips,
eyes,
whatever it is. So make that the feature that you interact with the thing that the name has become, and then make it bizarre. Make it just like as extreme as you can.
Throw something in there.
Make it gross, make it funny, make it
whatever
all
you
those
want,
things,
whatever
you
works
want.
for you,
But then when you see that person, that's what you'll think of. Now, you won't think about that after you see that person several times over the course of time. You'll just remember their name. You'll know who they are, you'll remember their name. Maybe on some subconscious level, you're still running the little video.
You would definitely still be thinking of that.
But it's not part of your consciousness anymore. And that's the thing with most of those things. You repeat them, pay attention, repeat them coming from several different angles if you can, and then you'll remember it if you pay a little bit of attention. So there you go. Harry Lorraine's memory course in a nutshell.
I dig it. Sounds awesome.
It was good, yeah. It was good. I both got the book and the course. And the course was a binder full of numerous different exercises to go through and what have you. It was good. I wish I had a photographic memory, I think.
I look at something to help me remember.
I can remember whatever detail I want.
Yeah.
If I want to.
Yeah. By
focusing in on it and making it, like I said, and taking a little bit of time and paying attention. I don't have a photographic memory where I can look at a table full of things, look away, and then tell you everything.
Oh yeah, no, I can't do that.
And I say I'd like to have that, but I don't know if I would, because I've heard some reports that people that have those types of memories have a lot of trouble sorting out shit.
Yeah,
I've got the polar opposite of that.
Oh, is that right? You
Yeah,
remember nothing?
I have nothing. It's called aphantasia. I can't imagine anything in my mind.
I see.
Yeah,
wow.
completely blank.
And that's a real thing?
It's not CRS.
Aphantasia.
Remember
No,
shit.
it's called aphantasia.
Wow, never heard that.
I have no mind's eye.
Versus Windows.
Well, I mean, I'm not a tech guy, so that doesn't mean much to me.
It means I can't imagine what things look like.
Crazy.
Wow.
I heard the other day that there's some
somebody
people.
says, imagine this, that you
Yeah,
can't do
yeah, I
that.
can.
So do you all talk to yourself inside your head without moving your lips?
I don't really hear anything, and yet I still think. I don't know. We've had this conversation quite a few times, and
Not you
can't
and I,
explain-
but-
no, not you and I,
Yeah.
but others. And I have not been able to explain it really. It is just it occurs. It
Yeah,
just
I'm told
occurs.
that some members of our population do not have conversations with themselves inside their heads without their lips moving.
Yeah. No, I don't think I do that exactly. It just more like it just happens in there. I guess.
see.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
So yeah,
And that's where most of life is inside our heads, eh?
Not,
Yeah,
for,
because-
not for me.
I my
Yes, it is. Yours is just a different experience
Perhaps,
than mine,
yeah.
and mine is a different experiences than Glenn's, and you know, and yet we project onto other people that they're all having the same experience that we are.
Yeah.
They're interpreting
Or
things
why
the
aren't
same
you?
way, and we expect that.
Yeah.
And yet that's many times not the case at all.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reality, eh? Is it
So
real?
you never have the problem of going to bed and having the brain running on.
No.
See,
I don't get
You
those
don't count.
earworms.
You don't
and that
count
kind of stuff.
sheep.
No.
Yeah.
Couldn't see him if you wanted to.
And honestly,
Wow.
as soon as I look over there, I don't know what you look like unless I list the things that what you look like.
Oh, okay.
That's why the conversation we're having was interesting to
Harry
me.
Lorraine's memory course.
Yeah,
There you go.
and I don't. The funny thing you said is don't pay attention to the hair and mustache. I never include those in my description
Right? Yeah, because they change.
because they change.
Especially with women. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you learn something new every day.
And that doesn't mean that I remember everybody that I meet
no.
immediately.
No.
I don't. I meet too many people for one thing.
Yes.
In a day.
Because of who we
But
are.
when I understand that this is somebody whose name I want to remember, then I take a moment and I focus in and I do that. But otherwise, it can take me 4 or 5 times of meeting the same person before I remember their name.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I'm a bit embarrassed by it. I wish it wasn't the case, but it just is what it is. Until I've paid attention, until I,
I'm sure they
because those
understand.
other 3 or 4 times ahead of that,
Yeah.
I didn't really pay attention. I was told what their name was, and in fact, what Harry points out is a lot of people, they are aware that they're not very good at remembering people's names. So when somebody has been asked what their name is, and the person's telling the other person their name, the other person is saying to themselves, "Oh, damn, I'm not good at remembering names." So instead of actually paying attention to what the person said and making a little scene out of it to remember,
That's fine.
they're saying in their head they're running this
Uh-oh.
thing about, "Oh,
Oh,
damn,
yeah. Yeah.
oh damn," and
I
in
should
so
be listening.
doing,
I should be listening.
in
Yeah.
so doing, they're not. Well, when they come to the point where they say, "I should be listening," now there's some hope.
Well,
Now they've identified that they've
that's
got
a
a
step
problem
forward,
going
at
on,
least.
and they can maybe address that. And that's what you need to do, is become conscious of what you're thinking. And when you're paying attention, become conscious of what it is that you want to remember, and what do you do to remember that? How are you going to remember this? So that's the whole thing. But a lot of people don't pay attention to a lot of stuff. It's hard to do.
Just like I remember the lady who gave me a free haircut one time when I was hitchhiking in St. Anne, Manitoba on Canada Day.
What was her name?
I don't remember her name.
I thought you said
no,
you
no, I
remembered
did.
her.
I remember the lady in St. Anne, Manitoba, giving me the free haircut in her home on Canada Day, right?
Right.
Yeah, just hitchhiking.
She'd be
Her
disappointed.
husband picked me up, brought
But you
me to
didn't
their
write
home.
down her name or nothing?
No, I was getting a haircut. You can lose paper. I just told her I would never
People
forget
really
the
like
event,
it when you
the
remember
event.
their name.
Yes.
And it's quite impressive when somebody remembers a person's name, that's
Yes.
a little bit,
Yes.
because it's not easy to do.
No.
And most people don't do it right away. It's just, we're so caught up in a world inside our heads of a lot of different things going on, and outside our heads too. And like I say, if you think you have that limitation, that tends to be what people do, is they sabotage their own ability to not have that limitation by using that as the thing that distracts them from actually paying attention to the name of the client. And people will sabotage because it's what you believe.
Yeah.
This is the thing in life, is our experience. The reason your experience is different than mine is because you believe a lot different things than I do about what's going on in this room right now.
Right.
And we all have these different beliefs about what we believe, and we project that into our environment, and we as we're interpreting what's coming in, we use that as a filter to justify and verify and confirm what it is that we believe, because we want to be right. We have this ego that wants to be right about that which we believe. So we'll ignore a bunch of evidence that suggests that maybe it isn't the way you think it is, because we want to be right. So when you and what I'm talking about here is what you believe about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, the limits that we put on ourselves. Many of those were put on a long, long time ago. They were put on by incidents and traumas and events that happened. You know, certain milestones in our lives where things happened and we came to conclusions about who we were and what our limitations are, and those are the things that limit us. You know, throughout our life until we can come to a position where we can do better than that, when we can have an emotional experience that overrides that, that gives us back the freedom to have more choice in that particular situation. So it's a very, very common thing amongst people that they're living out programs that they designed as a result of things that happened and who they were at those times. And that's how they're responding to things, that's how they're interpreting things, that's why their reality is considerably different than other people's reality in the same situation lots of different times. It's just good to understand that about ourselves, because all of us are on a journey, whether we like it or not, to understand ourselves and to be the best that we can be of who we are. And,
my dad used to say to me, if you want to understand why somebody made a decision, learn everything about their entire life.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Including their ancestors.
And then you'll know why.
Including their ancestors.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, we can't really understand another person very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the most part, because it's a whole symphony of different things going on that have all kinds of different bases and all kinds of different things, and you could really get to know somebody well and talk about all these different things. When I was married for 17 years, and then Roxanne and I were together for 15 years, there were still things we were learning about each other. My wife and I, during my marriage, I mean, we would talk late into the night, most nights, because that's just who we were as people. You know, we had these long, amazing conversations about all kinds of different things, and her experiences and my experiences and what have you. And yet, still, in the end, now, I mean, we've been separated or divorced for 25 years or something like that. And I hear my son describe his mother's experience of things when we were together.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That is, you know, far from my truth.
Or what you believe, yeah.
Far from my truth. And that's just the way we are. We're biased as human beings, and we're limited in our ability to filter things and understand things, and the interpretations and the values that we put on things are very unique to each of us as an individual. And that's the journey, is who are we, you know, why do we react the ways that we do? Is this the way we want to react? You know, we try to work all that out. And that's all hard enough to become the enlightened beings that we should be in the lifespans that we have here. But to do it with the oppression of majorly sophisticated and well-armed bullies that have us in their target, you know, as their target.
Yeah.
You know, it's really tough to sort.
Well, especially when the thing they're targeting is one of the things that helps you reach said great place of thinking in the first place.
And
when
not
you start
without purpose, I believe.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to look at your life when you're feeling down, but when you smoke a joint, you're able to sort of take a step back and actually maybe take a look at it and make changes.
Well, that's kind of that famous quote by Nixon, right? Where he said, we can't have all these young people sitting around smoking weed and thinking about things.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Very
Yes.
well said.
Yeah.
We can't have the populace thinking about too much of this stuff here while we spend their money to go and capture other nations' oils and,
They'll think about not giving us the money.
and use their children as our weapons against them, and you know, and exploit them as best we can on behalf of our real friends. You know, they're not the ones who elected us into office; they're the ones who helped us get elected into office.
Yeah.
You know?
And own other countries and all that.
And all the rest of that. So, yeah, you don't want to be paying too much attention, I guess. And I guess that's why one of my friends wants me to have a later show.
Hey, once we get that permit, that's when we get those shows, right?
It is.
When
It
we get that piece of
100% is.
paper.
It 100% is.
Yeah,
That's
when,
all it is for me.
Yeah.
So if you want me to go away, you just got to let me have what I won't go away
Well,
without.
this is the thing. They want you to go away, but you've inspired a lot of us, and we ain't going away either.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not either, because
So-
I understand that you can't win if you can't lose if you don't quit,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So, you know, I'm not going to quit until I'm not here anymore or whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
I can
but
still
then there'll
not.
be
I can
people
still
that
not
take
win.
over.
I mean, this is now the tug of war that we're in. Is I went through all the proper steps. You know, you've heard it before.
Oh, yeah.
Many of my audience have heard it before. I mean, I've been an activist for 25 years. When this public health emergency hit the way that it did, and I had personal knowledge that the high dose edibles could help people get off drugs, I seized on it. But I didn't do it in the clandestine way that, you know, that we had been having to do things for all the time that I've been alive, and that is behind closed doors, or, you know, down back alleys, or, you know, out of sight, and I was like, no, this is the right thing. And the last thing I'm going to do is try to hide. So I did it the right way. I structured it all properly. Before I started anything, first I went to Vandu, because they're the ones that are funded by government to understand these things. They're the peers of the neighborhood. And I got unanimous approval to move forward with a plan that was boiled down to make it as easy as possible to get people high-dose edibles, period. That was just the thing. That was our goal. That was the foundation of what we tried to do. But before I did anything, I mean, I had their approval to work with them, to use their space, to use it as a place to dispense this stuff. In a time over 6 years ago where it was illegal and a criminal offense to do that. But I didn't just do it right away. First I went to Vancouver City Council. Now I've got Vandu's backing, and I want the City of Vancouver's backing on it as well. They've given backing to the supervised injection site, to numerous other programs. We've been a leader here in Vancouver, globally, but certainly Canada-wide with respect to drug policy, sane drug policy. I'm not speaking of some of the later policies right now, but, you know, certainly back in those days, absolutely, we were leaders in understanding people's rights and the dynamics of the consequences of prohibition that were driving so much of the abuse of the drugs and the hard drugs and all the rest of it. We understood all of that. And so we were armed with all of that. And so I went to Vancouver City Council and did my best to explain to them that a bag of high-dose edibles is the real safe supply, and that they should support what we were going to do. But they didn't think that they should even talk to me about that, and they wouldn't listen to me or allow me to have conversations. I tried phoning Kerry Jang, the councillor, the doctor, several times, and he would hang up on me even though I wasn't hostile in any way. But things progressed. I had a professional lobbyist who'd been doing it for 40 years. The father of one of my friends is a lawyer. Lobbied the city council for a couple of months there to try to get them on board with what we were going to do. In the meantime, I went with that lawyer to the Vancouver Police Board. We explained the whole idea of the program to them, not asking for anything, not even asking for verbal support, just wanted to tell them, you know, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. And, you know, we're doing it. It's not something we're asking permission about, although we'd love to have permission. We are asking for support from the City Council. But as for the VPD, that board meeting was just explaining what we were going to do with this program. And it went very, very well. The Deputy Chief, Steve Rye, came and shook my hand at the end. They chatted with me about it, thanked me for, you know, being concerned and wanting to help. And we never had any interference from the VPD for the 3.5 years that we were at Vandu, with hundreds of people lining up twice a week to get our care packs to do that. And every time that I was at Vandu, I put up signs. I had a big sign that covered the whole side of my one van, and I would tape that on there, another one for the back, and another one for the front, and one on the sidewalk. And where we had our desk that we were handing out had a big sign on it, clearly stating, you know, what we were doing there, not trying to hide. And on a few occasions during that 3.5 years, we had the VPD come through there looking for somebody, for something, not concerned about us at all. No. And every time I did my best to tell them, hey, do you know about us?
Yeah,
you know what we're doing here? You know?
Because we never do to this day to the ones who buy.
Absolutely, yes, and one person at a time, and they all need to know. And so the point is that we've never tried to hide. I did this right from the start. This is the right thing to do, done the right way, in my opinion. Once we started, there was no legalization, so it wasn't like I could apply for a permit or a license to do what we were doing at that time. Knowing it was the right thing to do, being it was a public health emergency, people were dying every day, we needed to get it to the people as quickly as we could. Even to wait the 2 months that I did between when I got Vandu's approval to when we actually started handing it out was very uncomfortable, because we knew we could be reaching people at that time. But there was a process to go through before we could actually start handing it out and doing it steadily. And that's what we did. But, you know, eventually here, once we've been on this block, in 10 days, it'll be 3 years that we moved into the store and started selling from the store. Selling, which we didn't do before, because selling had to happen because we had no other way to fund having a store. we had to pay the rent, we had to pay the bills, I had to have a staff, and so we had to start selling it. Very quickly into selling it, the dynamics changed a lot. The people we've been dealing with lining up at Vandu were all of a particular demographic of people. The people that were coming in to purchase were a different demographic altogether, in most cases. And we learned that these are people that are looking for a way out. They know we're running the program. They know this is associated. They do not want to have their name put down as somebody that's doing hard drugs and can't get off them. They can't do that. It's going to affect their jobs, it's going to affect their families, and all sorts of things. They need to have discreet, low barrier access to be able to come in with a baseball hat, a pair of sunglasses, and a beard, and a mask. They can even wear a mask.
Yeah.
And get what they want without being scrutinized, without having to be, on a list and have that exposed. Yeah. And so that's also our fight now. That originally the fight was just they have it available through the program, but once we realized there was so many people in Canada that are embarrassed about what they're doing or afraid because of real good reasons, that we need to have low barrier access for them. That's one of the barriers that can't be there. Yeah. So.
As your producer, I have to tell we have flat 55.
Oh my goodness, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
I really appreciate you.
Did you get everything off your chest?
I mean, I think so. I don't know. Come on down to Cannabis Day.
Keep going.
What do you want to plug?
Well, Rosie Rucka is awesome, of course. I want
Cannabis
to
Day
talk
coming
about
up July 1st.
Mad Hatter. I mean, he's amazing. I love that guy and their company. And of course, Asia Moon. She's awesome. I wanted to. The tea ladies. I don't know if you've met them, but they make amazing tea. Mary and Joanna, look them up. Trust me, they make amazing tea.
Mary and Joanna.
Mary and Joanna. They're on there. The tea time ladies, I believe.
I think.
Best if you blur those.
Yeah, and Heisenberg.
Of course.
So, no, I really appreciate you having me on.
You go by a phone number. Is that something you want to put out here, or you just?
My number is 604-842-5159. Call me.
There you go.
All right.
You got any questions? He can answer.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for what you're doing. You're one of these people I alluded to just before bringing you on. That's still doing what we need to do to continue to try to get proper legalization, low barrier access, and high dose edibles or higher dose edibles than what the government will allow. That's so important. Just a legalization that recognizes the sovereignty of us human beings here and what the government's role is supposed to be. And this is just a commodity that really needs to be available to people easily. And that's what we're fighting for, and that's what you're fighting for. And I really appreciate your support, coming out to the different protests, Cannabis Day and the rest of it, setting up a lounge for people. Yeah. The other stuff that you do, the fact that, when you have your lounge, it's not good enough for you just to have the people come in and have a place to chill, but you're going to educate them as best you can while they're there and take that opportunity.
Whenever they give me the chance.
A man after my own heart for sure. One person at a time, and everybody you meet as you can,
That's right.
And, so thanks a lot for that.
Well, that was inspiration largely from you. So.
Well, thank you very much for that. I guess what I do is to try to inspire people for sure.
It rubs off on people, I'm here too, right?
I'm looking for critical mass. I can't lie. I won't lie. And I'm hoping that a lot more people understand that the importance of what we're trying to accomplish here. That it's not about getting high. It's not about another drug. It's about freedom at its very core. It's about what the role of the government is supposed to be in a free country.
Right.
And how we're being abused and mistreated by governments that are working on behalf of financial elite people and corporations, and not for the people that there should be, which is you and me. Yeah, for sure, 100%. So thanks for helping us expose all of that and continue on fighting this. And
my pleasure. Hopefully you have me back again someday.
I'd love to do that.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, for sure.
Thanks
again. We'll see you on Cannabis Day coming up.
I do appreciate it.
Right on.
Okay.
See you on Cannabis Day.
Right. We'll see you next week, sir.
All right. Thanks, man. Oh my, time flies.
Are we off?
Not at all. I'm getting off on these though. These are pretty cute. I like that. We got Gibby's glass over here, and we got these things here by the candy bar. Miss D there, and you just heard from the Heisenherb people. Glenn's got his can of match. There is a whole bunch of things going on to continue the work that has been ongoing for many, many decades here. Cannabis was made illegal in Canada over 100 years ago now. It was this past January that we rotated over the century mark, and that's just disgusting. And it's so disgusting because, you know, they say we have legalization, and they've done a lot to fragment the movement towards proper legalization, and yet we haven't gotten there at all. And most of the people that were involved in the multi-billion-dollar industry in British Columbia prior to legalization are still doing what they were doing before it was legalized, and they're still not legal. I mentioned that some of the people have gone over and become legal producers. A bunch of others tried and couldn't get those licenses, and a bunch of others didn't try because they could see the futility of it in the first place. But the point is that all these people that were involved in this burgeoning and absolutely amazing industry, several $1 billion worth, by their best estimates, are still there. Legalization happened, and it didn't change anything for any of those people. They weren't legal. They couldn't get a license or wouldn't get a license if they tried, or most of them didn't want to try it for good reason. But they weren't going to stop growing. They weren't going to stop selling. People weren't going to stop buying from them because there was legalization all of a sudden. Because, what's their incentive to do that? Look, that they're criminals? Well, they were criminals before legalization. The fact that they're criminals after legalization, it's not going to deter anybody. That's no deterrent at all. Sure, they shut down the overt operations, the medical dispensaries for the most part that had been operating during Prohibition. But all those other people, and even the people that were supplying them, and all of their customers, were still going to look for a source of cannabis that wasn't the government source. The government source proved right away to be not of medical value, to be not of actual decent value. The product that was old, stale, dry, unable to be actually sampled at all before purchase, and the price at purchase above what people are used to paying, because you got to pay the fine to the government, right? But legalization isn't what Trudeau said it was going to be. It didn't give any relief to the medical users, and that is still ongoing. So here we are, fighting it on our end, doing what we're doing with the Cannabis Substitution Program. You've had some insight into how that's all come about, and yes, we've been handing out cannabis high-dose edibles for 6+ years now, and for almost 3 years, in another 10 days, we'll have been selling cannabis at low barrier with $1 grams and dollar joints, and really reasonable prices on all the different things. The FECO at $10 a gram, making sure that the things that people really need are in the highest of qualities and are available at prices that are affordable to people, and it makes sense for us. And we can subsidize those items that are most important to people with things that other people that have a little more resources are more than happy to pay for at still much reduced cost, but allow the model to work. And so that's what we've been doing. We did it in a store for 5.5 months until the promise of a license from the municipal government fell through, because it was contingent on a federal government giving us an exemption or a license of some sort. And even though we applied for that, now it's been well over 2.5 years, we're still waiting. And the last correspondence, just about 2 weeks ago now, from Health Canada was that they're still considering our response, our long and in-depth response to their intent to deny, their second one in a year, and it just goes on and on and on. And that's a point that I was trying to make earlier, is that we're just going to keep on doing this because we're not going to stop, because stopping would be how we get defeated, and we're not going to do that. They, on the other hand, also seem to be in a position where they're not able to say yes. We put them in the spot where they couldn't say no, not quite realizing how much of a spot they were in not being able to say yes. And that's their dilemma. That's become our dilemma. And so after 5.5 months, we had to exit the store, and we moved into an RV, and we parked the RV in front of the store for well over 2.5 years now. and we can go out and visit with those people briefly and see what's going on. And,
You want to do that? All right.
Yeah, it's time we do that.
All right.
I'm going to take this with me.
What are you taking with?
Call them dinky cars when we were kids.
You can call, yeah, well, Dink became a different concept. Because when I first looked at it, I thought it was a butt plug. I'm not going with Dink.
Well, it's a dinky.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
No.
Come on. The weather report, the weekly THC weather report it is absolutely stunningly beautiful here in Vancouver. It is a temperature you'd love to have it probably all the time. Got a nice little breeze coming in. You can feel the warmth of the sun, but it's not hot. It's been really, really good.
It's
for
nice,
sure.
yeah.
The flowers need some rain once in a while. Maybe at nighttime it could rain for them. But if we're going to engineer the weather, this is pretty much where you would want it to be. I was noticing that at night when I was sleeping, that wouldn't want a heater, don't need an air conditioner, don't care if the blanket's on or off. This is kind of like the perfect sleeping temperature as well. So that's what's going on here. Don't come here though, it rains too much and you already have enough people. By the way, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I already said goodbye to you, I know, but I want to thank you again. It's important to continue on what we're doing here.
I hope I get to come back.
Very good. You don't need to be on camera. You
No, I didn't put her on camera.
sneaking around the corner.
I
there.
was making sure.
Lots of people don't want to be on camera.
Yes.
And in this neighborhood, for sure, we understand that. So we always try to make sure that we don't really capture.
We're going to go right. Well, okay, well, the traffic was stopped. I was thinking.
We'll go around the back.
All right.
We had somebody break our windshield.
Oh, yeah. I tried to smash it, did they?
I'm waiting for a rainy day. On a rainy day, I can wash this because the rain will wash it.
Oh, wow, I see. Yeah, they threw something out today.
Yeah, you can sort of see up in there that
Wow.
I have them on video.
Okay.
We see the person come out, tall, male, dress pants, some sort of a winter coat with a hood that's up, and we can see him come around. We only get to see the back of them, and they come up and they come around, and with great intent, pull a rock out of their pocket and slam it against the windshield.
Wow.
There was no intent to break in. It was just an act against us for I don't know what reason. I wish people would just come and talk to me, for God's sakes. I could maybe help them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that happened. Construction all day, every day. Well, that's not true. 5 days a week.
Yeah,
pretty
5
much.
days a week, yeah.
Yeah, it's busy here. You can show off the signs. Try to advertise to the public driving by as best we can of what we're doing here and what the purpose of the whole thing is, or how we feel about these laws that make it so that we have to be in an RV and we can't be in a store like any other business would be in a store, and allow people to have the dignity of a safe space to come into, and instead they've got to come to an RV, during not all this beautiful weather here in Vancouver, and all that entails. So not very happy about being stuck in an RV. We do make the best of it, and for the most part they do leave us alone. Hello. How's it going in here?
Never better.
Is it still as neat as it was before?
Well, not in that right one spot, so don't look too low. But
Not right where you're sitting, but there was a little bit of housekeeping done in here as well today. Other than that, how went today, guys?
Not too shabby.
Awesome.
yeah, the A team all day.
Back on the A team?
What was
Hey.
is there one incident?
What you talking about?
So back
Well,
on
you
the
have
A
to be
team.
here, as long as you're here.
Nice.
Five
Yeah,
to five.
and there was we helped someone out with some Narcan yesterday, apparently.
I heard.
It was,
And from getting robbed, apparently.
and from getting robbed.
Yeah.
That's right. She was overdosing, and her friends were relieving her of what was in her pockets, apparently, until our staff came along and said, "Hey, no," and brought her back and what have you. It's the neighborhood that we live in here, for sure. Always part of the job. There's things like that that go on. We don't tell you about a lot of them because it's a personal privacy issue with people, and what have you. And we don't want it to be entertainment for sure.
So, like
willing
when I
to do
caught
it for
that- like when I
education.
caught that guy stealing that $100 from the other
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. And then there was, the person that came here we've known since the beginning, who's very distressed sometimes. And I mean, Des sat with him for about a half an hour out there as he was talking about what was going on with his mom and stuff, and he wasn't very happy. It's part of the deal here. We don't just provide access to cannabis, but we're access to human beings. And
A support system.
and we are a support system. We know many of the people, if they come here repeatedly, we know their names. They tell us their stories. They feel comfortable here. We're providing a service that is much needed in a very desperate and desolate neighborhood for sure. So if you believe in what we're doing here, it'd be nice to have some support, some letters, some communication perhaps with Health Canada, the Federal Health Minister, Jean-Yves Duclos, maybe the PM's office, anybody you can think of that could help further our needs here of being able to continue doing what we're doing. That would help a lot. Eventually, if enough people do that, I believe that there will be dignified, discreet, low barrier access for people through storefronts here and other areas of the country that need it so badly. I want to acknowledge the CSP going on out in Surrey. There's two separate groups out there, one in Newton and the other one in Whalley, but greater Surrey area, doing fine work, getting medicine and food to people and compassion to people that need it out there. Being told on a daily basis of other areas of our area here in British Columbia, but other places as well, that could really use the type of thing that we're providing here. And the way to get that to happen is to get government on board with it, to help them realize that they could be seen as heroes and actually doing something positive during this public health emergency. And if enough people urge them that way, then maybe we get it.
I wish I could find somebody back in the Sioux that could start up a chapter there.
Yeah,
The Sioux has been really bad in the past 5 years or so. 5 to 7 years.
It's
like
so hard to do.
there's no. It is. I'm just like I've been talking to some people, but it's got to be the right people that are But there it can be really used. A lot of those little towns, there, Sudbury, they're all really infected.
They are, and it's about people as well.
Absolutely.
You need to have somebody who's relentless and who's going to keep it together and get over the obstacles and make it all work.
It's not easy.
But for one person to do it, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
It needs to be a group effort, and in many of these places, there's not a lot of people there. Which brings me to the Halifax chapter of the CSP. Chris has been doing just a yeoman's job there for 3.5, going on 4 years.
Yeah.
And they need help there. They need more donators. They need more volunteers to keep that going over there.
Maybe I'll send them some shit out.
If you know anybody that's in the Halifax or Nova Scotia area, there's a CSP going on there. It's been going on for 3.5 years. There's hundreds of people that are provided access once a week through the program. And if you can help in some way, that would be an awesome thing for you to do. Awesome because it's great that it happens, but awesome for you as a person to contribute to something like this. This enriches your life. It gives you a sense of meaning, a sense of being able to give back and help in an otherwise helpless situation. So if you're able to provide some donations of edibles or whatever, there's a long list of things that are needed to keep these programs going. If you're able to go and get some form of physical help and be involved that way in helping of making stuff or putting stuff together or handing it out, that would be great. Bearing in mind that if you're working with an edibles program, helping people get edibles, perhaps you're somebody who needs edibles. I mean, that's a great way to avert the lineup. You're right there putting the care packs together, and you can put one together for yourself, and that's always part of the deal. So, there is actual value in remuneration in volunteering for what the CSPs are doing as well. So if you're at all able to help in Surrey, and Newton, Whalley, Halifax, please contact the organizers there and get a hold of me or whatever, and I'll help you do that. And let's keep these things going. Let's have more of them. And yeah, we can all join together and do that. And so that kind of wraps it up. Another show is in the books. Another week, and we still don't have resolution from Health Canada. We're still on this journey to try to get a discreet, low barrier, easy access cannabis store for people and for people all over. And thank you for being part of that journey. And whatever you do between now and next week when we come back and tell you where we're at, be kind to yourself, be kind to your neighbors and the people that you meet. In fact, the people that are the hardest to be kind to, they're the ones who need it the most. And make sure to be kind to yourself. And bottom line to all of it, life is short, far too serious to take too serious. Make sure you're having as much fun as you can. I'll see you next week.